Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Director Watch, an AwardsWatch podcast that attempts to get inside the mind of cinema's greatest auteurs, explore what drives them, and maybe we go on a few unrelated tangents along the way. I am Ryan McQuade, the executive editor here at AwardsWatch, and joining me, as always, is my companion forever and ever, Jay Ledbetter.
And today, I want to suck your blood. We're talking vampires, baby. And who, this is the quintessential film from the new director we're covering. We're talking a new movie series. And what is the first movie everyone thinks about when they think about Tony Scott? The Hunger. The Hunger.
Good job,
He's this really austere provocateur, Tony Scott. He's all about artisanal horror.
Yeah, he's we're actually covering 12 films in the Hunger series. It's kind of weird that he only decided to make one movie, right? No, we're here to talk
decalogue.
Yeah, exactly. Wow. Didn't think of it that way, but okay. No, we're here to talk about Tony Scott, our new series.
Yeah.
We just wrapped up Sofia Coppola last week, and it's been a good year so far. We're already at I guess, Jay, we're past the quarter point. We're getting closer.
We're well past the quarter point. We're getting to half.
We're getting to the halfway point, but this is going to take up a majority of what Tony Scott was kind of known for, summer blockbusters. This is going to be the summer of T. Scott.
It's a Tony summer.
Now, Jay, on our old show, we did his brother, Ridley Scott, a.k.a.
Wait, that's his brother?
Yes, brother. And we codenamed him the Riddler because he's the
Riddler.
He's a little trickster. You know, that guy.
You never know what you're going to get with that guy.
Yeah. It's just a big old question mark sometimes with with Ridley Scott. Do you have a nickname for Tony Scott?
Oh,
are we gonna have to find one?
I mean, we're gonna have to find one. I'll figure it out. Don't worry about that.
I want to call him the Sizzler because his movies are always hot.
I don't know if we can do Sizzler. I think that's a good first pass, but I think we can plus it up.
Oh, okay. T-Sizzle?
I think that's bad.
Oh, okay.
I think we're going backwards, actually.
Well, I'm just trying to throw stuff out there. Maybe our guest today.
Remember, that reminds me of, remember in Popstar when...
Oh, God, here we go. All right, first tangents.
They made the joke about Tony, and then he was in...
he didn't want to spell it,
but it's
with the
Tony?
And it's with the question mark, right?
Yeah, question mark.
Yeah. Tim Meadows, right?
Tim Meadows.
Yeah.
We love Tim Meadows.
Tim Meadows is... you know a comedy is good when Tim Meadows is in there for like 5 minutes. Like that, Walk Hard. Good stuff.
Yeah.
Ladies Man, maybe not so much. But anyway, we have a guest today.
We do.
And this guest is...
Why people keep coming on this podcast, I do not understand.
I don't know. This is not the first time he's been on. This is actually his third appearance.
No.
But this is, or I guess this is his fourth. No, it's his third appearance. This is his third appearance.
And his second appearance on the first episode of a series.
I was just going to say that. He's the opener. You know what I mean? He's the lead act.
Yeah, he gets to hear me do my long-winded biography again.
Exactly. And we couldn't ask for a better guy to join us on our first episode. It's Josh Parham. Josh, welcome back to Director Watch.
Wow, tangents right off the bat. I love to see it.
Josh, I had an important question to ask you right off the top. Is this your favorite show that you ever get to guest on? Because I feel like you just have so much fun when you're on with us, and I don't know how the hell you keep saying yes to come back and putting up with this crap, but you keep doing it.
Ryan just patting himself on the back?
I mean, it's a little bit, but it's also
awesome, right?
I mean, it's pretty good. I mean, like, I've potted with Josh for many years, and never have I seen Josh be so happy when he's on one of our episodes. But maybe I'm reading the room wrong. I don't know.
I do think this show is very fun.
Thank
I
you.
genuinely do believe that.
Put it
We
on the
have really
poster.
good discussions, and then even when it falls apart at the end and just goes into Crazy Town, that's
It
very
does, yeah.
endearing as well.
Do we trademark Crazy Town, Jay?
Wow. Isn't that a band? Isn't that isn't that the band that did Butterfly? Come my lady, come my lady.
Is
You're my
that-
butterfly? Aren't they called Crazy Town?
Please never sing that again.
Am I a member of Crazy Town right now? Trying to remember that.
I think you're their lead singer and also their manager. Still, are you trying to book events? You got corporate gigs coming up on the schedule.
I think they're called something slightly different, but
Yeah, I think I never want to hear that again. I'm trying to forget.
Which means
that
it will
era.
happen frequently throughout the
Yeah,
series.
it'll be like this.
no,
this
they're
movie's-
called Crazy Town. I'm embarrassed that I got that right. Wow.
All right. Right off at the right time. But anyway, we're going to talk about Tony Scott's directorial debut, right? The Hunger. And I got to say, before we get into the film and everything, I initially, when we put this series together, I didn't have this on the list. And Jay told me I had to have it on the list. And then months and months and months ago, when we did our episode on The Boys in the Band that Josh was on, I told him that we were going to do this film and on the series. And Josh was like, you have to do that one and you have to have me on. And I was just like, oh, okay, well, I guess this is like a thing. This is like, because, we mostly associate him with like these Denzel Washington action vehicles or these, these very
Top Gun,
yeah, like that kind of
Cruise, Denzel,
yeah,
Summer,
the big movie stars, and stuff like that.
Yeah.
They're bombastic and
Bruckheimer.
loud. You know what I mean? And when you look into this movie, it's quite the polar opposite. So I guess it kind of fits perfectly that this is the first movie we're going to talk about in this series. But Josh, I'm going to ask you this, and then Jay and I are going to give our thoughts as well too, because this is the first time that we're talking about T-Sizzle. And what are your thoughts on Tony Scott as a director? And actually, I think this is also going to be another good question. Who do you think is better, Josh? Ridley?
Oh wow, this
Or
is
Tony.
kind of the. Are we going to lead with this one?
Yeah.
I think that's good. And then you and I can debate after the series.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I think it's best for the guests to determine this, and who better to
I have
have
already
on than
seen
Josh.
every film by both of these filmmakers.
Correct. You have,
Yeah.
because Jay is a completionist, but also has no life. So, Josh?
Correct. Yeah.
Well, so on the subject of just Tony Scott in general, he is a filmmaker that I have gone through kind of a up and down relationship with. And I think it's because when I first started noticing the contemporary movies that he was making at the time, when I was noticing, the finer details in movies myself, I have to admit it was in the period of Tony Scott that I'm not the biggest fan of. Like the 2000s era where he's going real hard with those filters and
Zooming
double
in.
exposures. Yeah, like it's not really for me, especially at that
Tony.
time. Yeah, so for a while I never really dove into his filmography all that much because I just really wasn't impressed with that particular output. But as I got older and went back to his earlier work, I was really just taken by how he just seemed like a filmmaker who just really understood how to make great action spectacle. And he was so tuned into figuring out what details were necessary for your movie and which ones you can kind of let go by the wayside. But as long as it was entertaining, that's the only thing that really mattered. And I think not every movie is a masterpiece, but I think he is kind of a master craftsman in terms of delivering that kind of cinema. And that has led me to think a lot about the battle between him and Ridley Scott. And my feeling is that Ridley Scott, I think, has higher peaks than Tony, but he has lower lows. And I think when it comes to consistency, I think he was the better filmmaker, to be honest. Like, nothing will ever touch like Alien for me. That's like one of the greatest movies of all time. But you do take some knocks down when you make Exodus.
Batting average.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah, it's kind of like
It's tough.
it's like Jay, it's like athletes, right? Like, what would you rather have? Would you rather have the like, I don't know what like the best analogy. I mean, like, would you rather have the consistent career, or would you rather have the pocket in your career where you were the most dominant, probably presence in the game, but then your kind of career fell apart? Or
It's
do you
kind of
want to
like
be the consistent
like,
veteran for 20 years, and yeah, you also got some big wins in there too, but they weren't as big as the guy that you're getting compared to all the time.
I think I got a comparison for you, Ryan, actually, as it relates to athletes, which is what people always want to hear about when they listen to this podcast.
Yeah. Or Josh, even. I don't know if Josh wants to hear a sports
riveting
take.
subject matter.
I'm thinking maybe Ridley is a bit of a Derrick Rose, perhaps.
Interesting.
And just like the bolt of lightning who couldn't do it consistently. And then maybe Tony Scott is like, who's like just a freaking consistent. I don't know. He's.
Do you want to say he's
else.
like? Do you want to say he's like? Well, do you think that Tony Scott like won championships? Like he was at the highest heights?
Like, well, personally, I do.
Okay.
So for me, he's like.
Because I was going to say like he could be like a Chris Paul. But that's maybe a little too high. You know what I mean? Because like Paul's just like
too high.
Because like Paul didn't win championships in most people's eyes, and most people think he's super great and maybe like the greatest point guard ever. But he never won an MVP, never got a title, never hit the highs of maybe other contemporaries in other categories. You know.
And this has been AwardsWatch Basketball Hour. We will now continue to talk about Tony Scott.
Well, I mean, Josh knows who probably Derrick Rose is. He's from Chicago. He played for the Bulls.
I mean, I've heard that name before. Yes.
Okay, there you
go. Hey, wow. That's a win. That's a win with, if anything, on this show. There you go.
As they say in basketball, that's a home run.
Goal. Jay, this was your idea. This series, I think, this was pretty much your idea because I
would certainly say you were very much agreed with it, but yes, I would say Tony is one of.
I'm your enabler.
My guys.
Yeah, I'm your enabler. I'm never. Josh knows. When have I ever told you no on a show? I mean, for the most part.
That's true.
Yeah, I'm like
you probably need to say no more. Actually.
Probably I do.
Probably yes.
Well, all right. Geez, Josh, you didn't have to agree. You're just a guest. Like, come on. Like, you come into our house and you're just making yourself comfortable.
Well, as we have established, Ryan, I kind of feel like you secretly like it when I meet to you. I
don't. I'm going to be honest. If we're going to be for real, it kind of hurts my feelings. I cry a lot. I just look for Josh's approval.
The one thing I am discovering recently, guests are not afraid to be mean to me. But,
no, they're not. But now they're being.
I can take it. I can take it much better than Ryan can.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just trying to keep the shit.
Ryan's
well, you have to because you're a white dude. So
yeah,
it's tough out there.
Yeah.
But
anyway, this was mostly Jay's idea because he was doing a self watch of Tony Scott's films, I believe last year, if I'm not mistaken.
A couple of years. That was 2 or 3 years ago by now.
I thought it was like, I guess so.
Maybe a couple of years.
Maybe a couple of years. Maybe like 2. And I saw him on the old letterbox, just putting that together. And I was just like, oh, that sounds like a good idea. Because we had just done, like I said, Ridley over at In Session Film. And I kind of like the idea of us having this as we've just gotten out of doing William Friedkin and Sofia Coppola. They've got a lot to say in those series. There's a lot of meat on those bones. Some of those episodes can get quite serious at times. And I just thought, what an interesting experiment it would be to do Tony Scott. Because it's mostly, like Josh, you're saying, he's a director mostly known for action films. He's got a distinct...
He's just Sofia Coppola for dudes.
Yeah. I mean, maybe. But I think also, too, the modern action film has a lot of influences, much like what we talk about with James Cameron. I think we have some influences from Tony Scott in a lot of modern action films. And so I think that this will be a really fascinating series to go on his filmography. Plus, he's worked with some of the great talents that we have in this business.
The actor tangents are going to be absolutely
it's going to be insane. So, but Jay, You said
Yeah.
he was your guy. He's one of your guys.
Yeah, he kind of is, and I don't think I would have said that before I had done the big watch through a couple years ago. But um, I don't know exactly what it is about him. You know, what Josh was talking about, kind of his relationship when he was growing up with him. My relationship with him was sort of like, oh, he makes like junky action movies. Like that's cool that he does that. And then, you know, as I've gotten older and have more of an appreciation for the craft and the storytelling, I'm just like this dude is an elite storyteller. Like strip away any sort of genre specifications or anything like that. This dude is an incredible director of actors. He has such an efficient way of telling stories, and he understands how to entertain people. And when you look at his background, it's fascinating that he became the action guy because he was, and it's, you see this with many action directors. They come up as these sort of hoity-toity art guys. John McTiernan was a big classical art guy. Tony Scott wanted to be a painter. That's what he wanted to do growing up. He went to college to be a painter, and he was born in 1944 in England. I'm not sure if you know, fairly tumultuous time in England. He had two older brothers, one of which, the middle brother, was named yes, Ridley Scott. Yes, indeed, correct. And then he kind of just grew up in this industrial town with a military family, but him and Ridley just loved art. And the family was like, we support you, but this is weird. I don't really know what's going on. And then Ridley sort of got off and running at the Royal College of Art in London. And he graduated. Then Tony applied, got rejected, studied somewhere else, then made a little short film because while he was painting, he was like, I still have other outlets I want to go to. And he would occasionally do some film. Obviously, his brother was probably a big influence on that front. And eventually goes to the Royal College, gets his degree, and tries to be a painter. And guess what? Not a ton of money in being a living painter. That is what history has generally told us. And so, you know, Ridley, by this point, obviously, has started this big commercial company. That's how he got to start. Tony's like, no, I don't want to do this. I don't want to, you know, ride on your coattails. And Ridley's company has got what would become huge filmmakers, not just himself, but, you know, Adrian Lyne was part of that company, Alan Parker, Hugh Hudson. We're talking, you know, Chariots of Fire, Fatal Attraction, all these guys who would go on to do amazing things. And Tony eventually is like, I'm married and I need to make money for my family. So Ridley, I will come and make commercials with you. And then after the success of his commercials, he starts doing some BFI stuff. He starts doing some TV. And the one movie he really, really wanted to make as his featured debut was Interview with the Vampire. And nobody would fund that, couldn't get it made. And then 1982 comes around, and this movie, The Hunger, which is based on a novel, is sort of circling around. Some people are wanting to maybe make it, but this is the era of the werewolf, actually, right? You got American Werewolf in London, you've got The Howling, a couple others, but there's this sense that maybe vampires are coming back. Alan Parker passed. Ridley Scott allegedly passed on The Hunger, but they both said, I think Tony Scott might be the perfect guy to make this movie. And so this was Tony Scott's debut. And you look at this movie, and it is unlike any other Tony Scott film.
Yep.
And that is one of the biggest things that stands out about this movie. And I want to talk about sort of the implications of what this movie means in the context of his career, what might have happened if this movie was a success. There's so many rabbit holes to go down with this film, but I just want to say first and foremost, I think this movie rocks. I want to, I'm very excited to talk about it because this is not a movie that has much of a lasting legacy unless you're a Tony Scott kind of diehard to a certain extent. And I'm very grateful that we get to talk about it today. So
I'm excited about this whole
Tony.
series and talking about Tony with you, Jay. We've been really having a great time this year with Freakin' and with Sofia Coppola. But I would be lying to everyone out there if for the last month or so we have been texting each other back and forth, being very excited, getting extremely pumped, because there is something about doing a series like this, because there is a lot of nostalgic films, not just for ourselves and movie experiences that we're going to talk about. There's, I mean, one of the biggest blockbusters of all time is in this series, and spawned then one of the biggest blockbusters of the modern era, and sort of the relationship there. I mean, he definitely has, like as you said, Josh, a style and aesthetic of his own, which is really which is very rare, I think, for a lot of.
He has a style of aesthetic that is of his own, and then he completely changes it and makes another aesthetic that is entirely his own.
Exactly.
Yes.
And I think a lot of directors that, I mean, we could clearly think of him, like a lot of contemporaries, as maybe a journeyman, but I think that over time that has kind of washed away, and you see him very much in all of his movies. Very much so. And
for better or worse.
For better and for worse sometimes. No. That's for sure. But like when you have a style to your own, that is, I mean, like even the greats, like, I mean, we talk about this all the time, but even like his brother, to a certain extent, is his own worst nightmare. Even as someone as great as like Spielberg or Scorsese, or even now of like someone like Nolan or Gerwig, they're going to have moments in everyone's career where their best tendencies also at times could be also their worst tendencies for some. And so I think it is really fascinating series. And Josh is not the only guest we're going to have on. We are going to have a guest on every episode, I believe, as of right now. It's going to be crazy. We're going to have a lot of
people
opinions.
love Tony.
People love Tony.
People are big Tony fans.
But also it's not a big ask to be like, hey, do you want to watch Crimson Tide? Yeah, sounds awesome. Thank you for asking.
Thank you. Yeah, I think that's the other thing about his movies too.
Want to watch Enemy of the State?
Yeah,
yeah, I mean, that's a freaking rock and roll. 2 hours.
It could sound.
That movie's like pretty long, I think.
Yeah, I think that's like 2 hours and 15 minutes, that movie. But anyway, I think that when we have offered stuff in the past, and some of it can be challenging, some of it's also very niche, there is something very universal and also specific about all of his movies that I think that the variety of people that we'll have on this podcast to talk about it over the next almost 3 months will be pretty great. And so with that, we're here to talk about The Hunger, which came out in 1983 and is directed
which is not like any of those movies that we just talked about.
Yes.
I would say literally every other Tony Scott movie is a movie that could on some level work on a brain dead level and on a true cinephile level. Mm-hmm. This one is a little bit of very artsy, where you can't just be like, hey, dumb guy who liked Transformers, try this on for size.
You don't think so?
Can't really do that. I would say no.
I think you're wrong.
They might like one scene in the second half of the film. That might be
yeah. We'll talk about that. The stars Catherine Deneuve, David Bowie, Susan Sarandon. IMDb has this synopsis. Josh, I'm going to ask you if you agree with this, because I think it's kind of bad. A love triangle develops between a beautiful yet dangerous vampire, her companion, and a doctor. Essentially, I doubt that. I doubt that.
I would call that inaccurate.
Yeah. When I saw the Letterboxd one and I saw the IMDb one, and that seems like not true.
No, because it's not really a love triangle.
That's the thing. Everyone has compared everyone that I have read, every place has said the word love triangle in this thing. And for a love triangle,
I feel like that's the elevator pitch to just like
to get you in the door,
very quickly say what the movie's about. But yeah, because I feel like for most people, when you talk about three people in close proximity to a relationship, you just automatically say love triangle, just as shorthand. But yeah, there's no real competition in that sense between those individuals.
Well, love triangle.
If it's a love triangle, it's a love octagon.
Well,
there's a lot of coffins in there.
Yes. But I think for a love triangle to exist, that means that they all essentially have got to be, or two people are going after one person.
Yeah.
That is the basics of a love triangle. And that,
which I mean, I guess it's technically
it kind of works, but that is,
yeah.
It is the loosest sense of that term, I believe.
Exactly. It's a loose definition.
It is not the driving force of the film.
No.
Yeah.
But it is an interesting film. And Josh clearly wanted to be on here to talk about it. Josh, what are your thoughts on The Hunger?
I think this movie is fucking awesome.
Hell yeah, brother.
I love this movie to death. I really do. I have a very grand affection for just like horror movies in general. I'm not as big a fan of them as I know some other people are, but I really do like horror films. And I also really love vampire movies. And I saw this film at a time when I was just really into vampire movies, especially. And I love it when I can see one of these types of movies that, first of all, just gives us a little bit of a twist and doesn't go in for all of the lore that we've seen and 1,000 other things, that it allows itself to be a little bit different with its mythology. And so I appreciate that from just a storytelling perspective. I think that this movie is just filled to the brim with so much 80s style that I'm just in love with. I love the aesthetic to this movie, the cinematography, the hair, the costumes, and it just reminds me just of a time of when movies used to look like this and that we just don't have anymore. And so I am in love with that too. And these performances are surprisingly touching in some spaces. I think that the writing isn't the strongest, and there's definitely some things that happen in this movie that don't make a ton of sense to me as to why the development does go that way. But as an experience, I find myself really engaged by it. I think that the atmosphere that it creates is so captivating that I am just in it from frame one. And there are moments in this movie that I think are like genuinely disturbing. There's also moments that I think are genuinely touching. And by the end of it, I find myself just really kind of moved by the whole experience, both on an emotional level, but just on a regular thrill level with this movie. And I think it really is one of my favorite movies. I think this is just such a wonderful piece of work.
Wow.
J-Dog?
I love that. Yeah, this is a film I watched for the first time when I was doing my Tony Scott watch 2 or 3 years ago. And I'm with Josh on this one. I love this movie. From the jump, just that style just oozing into every pore of this movie. It's just aesthetically beautiful. This, of course, was shot by Steven Goldblatt, who shot another one of the greatest looking films of all time, Red, White, and Royal Blue from last year. Just crazy what happens to cinematographers these days. Just absolutely
I had no
insane.
idea where you were going with that, and then a fucking course you went there. Anyway, continue. So
it's just I really do think it's just insane that you'll be like, oh, who shot Doctor Strange? I think that was Bill Pope, I believe. Maybe. I don't know. Maybe it was somebody else. But anyway, yes, this movie is astoundingly beautiful. You totally see those painterly sensibilities of Tony Scott in this film. I'll tell you what aesthetically it reminded me of. Barry Lyndon. I thought this film was so chocked full of such incredibly dense painterly images that gave it this real sense of classical import, surrounded by this vampire story. Although vampirism is only rarely a very important part of the film. It could be completely played as sort of a slasher film, really, or maybe some other form of the genre. Only occasionally do you see these flashbacks to like ancient Egypt in the film, which I think are so cool to just throw in as these really jarring pieces pieces of imagery that you're just totally not accustomed to, because it does have such a sense of focus to it visually. And then for you to just have these other things thrown at you and just say, oh, by the way, this has been happening for thousands of years, I think is incredibly effective. It is just such an effective mood piece. It's beautiful to look at. I don't love the last 5 minutes of this movie. I don't know that they entirely make sense, but that doesn't really take away a whole lot from how thrilling I find this movie to be. I just watch this movie. I vibe with it. The score, the first 10 minutes of this movie are perfect, absolutely perfect. And they grab you, and it never really lets you go for the rest of the film. The imagery is incredible. I think David Bowie is awesome. Catherine Deneuve is incredible. This movie's sexy. Boy, is it sexy. It's awesome. This movie is great. It's one of Tony Scott's better films, which is crazy because he never made anything slightly resembling this ever again.
Yeah, this was surprisingly a first-time watch for me, because I've seen a lot of films in this
I'm not even
series.
sure that's that surprising. It's not a popular movie.
Well, the reason why is I've seen a ton of Tony Scott movies, and there's like 2 big blind spots, and this was one of them to complete the filmography. Another one that we'll talk about in a couple weeks, and I'm just going to leave it at that for the audience.
I think this is his second least popular, least known movie.
What would be the other one?
Revenge.
Yeah. Okay. All right, that makes sense. I have seen Revenge.
You had seen it before this?
Yeah.
That's crazy to me.
Yeah. I told you I went down the rabbit hole.
That movie. Oh. So it was for this though. It wasn't like you saw it 10 years ago.
No. No.
Okay.
No.
As we're recording this, you saw it in preparation for this series. I'm with you.
No. You were right when you're first to say. I've seen Revenge a long time ago.
Oh.
I saw a lot of Tony Scott movies. I've seen a lot of his movies.
I hope you didn't watch that one with your parents or something.
No, I just watched
wild.
No, I watched that on my own. Because I was just like, oh, what's Revenge? And I just watched it. And this was one I meant to watch, and I just never got to it. By the way, before I get into my thoughts real quick, Ben Davis was the cinematographer for Doctor Strange.
Okay, sorry.
Just wanted to get that clearer for the audience, and I know Josh was waiting on bated breath.
I think I've got Bill Pope on my mind because he shot Unfrosted, which is unbelievable.
Like unbelievable in a bad way, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Although Stephen Goldblatt, who shot this movie, he was the cinematographer for Batman Forever, which was an Oscar nominee for cinematography.
I love that nomination because that movie. I mean, say what you want about Joel Schumacher.
He's got a vision.
He's got a vision. Honestly, that would be an interesting series to do one day.
No,
maybe.
it would not.
Yeah. Well, let's do it.
You know, I'm coming back for that.
Yeah, we're coming back. Come on, Jay.
Defend Phantom of the Opera.
Yes. Yeah. I was gonna say someone's got to do it, right? There's some directors that are kind of those like big iconic names of that certain era of that 90s.
I actually do genuinely believe Schumacher is a fascinating director.
Yeah,
to talk about.
He's got a fascinating filmography. I mean, he reminds me a lot of like what is it, Barry Sonnenfeld, where it's like their career completely goes down the tube in the back half, but their first, it's like Zemeckis too. Like they have big successful first halves of the year of their careers, and then man, they just lose it, and they lose it quick.
Zemeckis is unlike anybody else. So
no, he's like, what is it? He's got a new movie coming out this year, right? With Tom Hanks and Robin Wright, and he's trying to get that
probably
Forrest Gump match.
I don't know.
Just gumping it up.
Forrest Gumps.
Yeah, Ben Davis, mostly known now as the cinematographer for Martin McDonagh, is really his big call to fame right now.
He makes good looking movies then.
Yeah, he did. He also has done a bunch of Marvel movies. He did the first Guardians of the Galaxy, Avengers Age of Ultron, Doctor Strange, Captain Marvel, and the Eternals. So he has worked with them 5 times. I
mean, I'll give him this. Those are some of the more ambitious
looking films.
Visually ambitious Marvel movies.
He also made.
Anyway, he had nothing to do with this film.
No, but he also made Dumbo. And if you want to see his recent work, go watch Wicked Little Letters that came out earlier this year. Delightful.
Literally no idea what that is.
You don't know about those Wicked Letters?
No.
It's a good movie.
Jay, what would you think Wicked Little Letters is about?
All right. So Adam Sandler, obviously, lead of this film. He plays a writer, but he's a writer who has writer's block. And at a certain point, a fairy comes down, brings his typewriter to life. And as a metaphor for writer's block, the letters on his keyboard become evil, hence Wicked Little Letters.
Okay. All right. You know that's completely wrong, right? It's a movie. It's a period piece with Olivia Colman and Jessie Buckley. And it is about scandalous letters that were written.
Oh, I do know this movie.
In a small,
I've seen this trailer.
UK town. Yeah.
I need to watch it. Yep, I need to watch it.
Yeah. It's Josh, you've seen it,
Okay.
right?
Yeah, I liked it. It's a good movie.
Yeah, it's a good movie. You know what else is a good movie? The Hunger.
It's pretty good off the top of my head, though, right?
I mean, it sounds like you should be getting a check from Netflix. You could have wrote a better version of Frosted or whatever the hell that thing was. Is it frosted or unfrosted?
Unfrosted.
Unfrosted. Okay.
Which is very weird because unfrosted implies that they are taking the frost off of something that already exists, but they're just calling the movie unfrosted. Unless the point is maybe they're
Well, it wasn't the original.
frosting.
I mean, the unfrosted would be the original version of the Pop-Tart.
Right, but you wouldn't need to call them
they didn't-
unfrosted if they were
because
never frosted in the first place.
Yeah, I guess so.
You put way too much thought into thinking about this movie than the filmmakers did.
A truly
Wait, you
An
mean the
ugly-
filmmakers as
an
in Jerry
ugly
Seinfeld?
Yes.
Yeah.
a violently bad movie.
Yeah.
in my opinion.
Did you watch that on the plane back from Italy?
No, I watched that at home.
Okay, I was kind of concerned if you did because you might want to have ejected and got out of the plane.
Yeah.
Halfway through your flight if you were watching it on the plane.
We'll talk about what I watched
on the plane at the
in
end.
The recommendations.
Okay. All right, we'll do that at the end. Movie I could recommend. Jeez, I can't speak today. Is The Hunger, which is
From director Tony Scott.
Tony Scott, which is what we're supposed to be doing on this series. It was the first time watch. I liked it. I do agree with Jay though. Like the last 5 minutes of this movie, I think kind of derailed it from being a love. Which I'm kind of curious. I'm kind of curious, but it was also like it's the first time watch, and I think I will watch this movie again because Jay's big on aesthetic. He always has been. His vibes. He's a big vibes guy around here. I'm more about I love a
Story.
good story, and I think that this
Making me feel.
But man, sometimes I throw those rules for myself out the window, and I just got to vibe with the movie. And this movie is so from the get-go vibey, and I mean the imagery of like two of the sexiest people alive at the time, or probably ever, in Catherine Deneuve and David Bowie, just walking into this club looking for prey while this also animal experiment is going on at the same time.
Rules.
I mean, my God, I was like, okay, way to announce yourself, Tony Scott, into this movie series as a filmmaker. Like it is on from that point. And I think that from a story wise, it's pretty thin actually. It's not too complex of a story. And I think that that's kind of great for it because then Scott's able to inject it with so much mood and
it's about evoking a feeling
and having this sort of longing dread of being lonely. And I could definitely feel that, even though it does feel like it's not a long movie. It's very short, but you feel that longing for companionship. Mm-hmm. And that longing of loss immediately. And I think the makeup work in this movie is phenomenal. Like
Dick Smith.
Dick Smith. I mean, he does a fantastic job on
this movie didn't cost nothing. This was like a $10 million movie in 80, whatever it was.
Yeah. And it made like 10 million. So it just made technically its money back and everything. I mean, I don't know how much marketing was for this thing, but I think the costuming is fantastic. I mean, it is a hot movie with hot people doing
There's a lot
hot
of hot
things,
people on this
and
one.
it's a steamy film, and
Dan Hedaya, like a snack.
yes, exactly. And I just I was kind of blown away by its vibes, and it was kind of and you're right, Jay. This is unlike anything that we've seen in his filmography, though I will say that like he does have back-to-back movies where he has a pretty big sex scene, which is like this in Top Gun, obviously. And this feels 100% more just it feels feels very forbidden but very elegant. And that is just very cheesy.
Elegant
very
and provocative.
Yeah. And that is just very like I mean, we're going to talk about it next week, and there are a lot of things I have to say about that movie in general.
I have a lot. Look, I think Top Gun is in its own weird way kind of a subversive movie, but we'll talk about it.
Yeah, okay. Calm down, Tarantino. Anyway, but yeah, I think that this is a really good movie and a really good way to start off the series. So that's it. That's the episode. And no, I'm just kidding. There's plenty to talk about here, obviously, for sure. But yeah, I mean, from the get-go, there is nothing hotter than David Bowie and Catherine Deneuve in this movie. It was kind of alarmed.
There maybe is, and it's Catherine Deneuve and Susan Sarandon.
I don't know. There is something about Bowie in movies. I don't feel like we got enough of him in it because he feels like such a fucking presence in movies. Like if he was alive now in this era, obviously he's sadly passed away and everything, but like if his presence was now in movies, I feel we would see him in everything. We would, and there's something great about him having a smaller filmography because he himself as an artist is very, radical and evolving and always changing. And something about him in movies, especially in a movie like this, it almost makes sense, but yet it's also like he wanted to do this like this. It's and yet he owns it. The scenes that he's in, I think, are. I do miss him a little bit in the back half because I would have loved to like have.
I like the first half more than the second half. I think,
but I do like that his sort of presence is lingering. I think throughout the back half of that of the film for me, at least that's how I feel. I don't know what you guys think.
Yeah, I definitely do think that you get a sense that his presence in that first half of the movie, I do think makes it a little bit stronger. I agree with Jay on that. And what I have always really loved about Bowie, and I've loved this about him ever since like I saw Labyrinth when I was like 6 years old, is that he does bring
Labyrinth. Oh.
Yeah, I've had a fascination with David Bowie for a long time. In fact,
it's not Bowie. It's not a bad fascination to have, about David Bowie because he's a pretty beautiful man, Josh.
He is, and just also the presence that he brings. It's like such this weird aura that feels otherworldly, but you're just so drawn to it at the same time. Like he really did kind of feel like an alien walking among us. It almost also feels like when he died, I think that's the moment the world started going to shit because like his removal from our presence just like disrupted the universe in some way. And it's all been downhill since then. But I really just have loved him as an actor too, and the presence that he brings. And the dynamic that he has with Catherine Deneuve in this film, you are just immediately glued to the screen just based on their own chemistry. And then when it becomes this very tragic story of this guy who wants to still desperately live, but is fading away. And it, obviously there's like, real world parallels that you can grab onto that if you want to, but just even contained in this one story, it's so tragic of somebody who's doomed to love one person forever and is then just tucked away because of the selfishness of that other person who can't let them go. It's such a sad fate that he's subjected to, and you feel for him in a really big emotional way that I think is pretty unique for this kind of a movie.
Yeah, I mean, like But then as you slowly kind of realize that John is one of many that have gone through this faith, and that as I was watching the second half of the film, I was thinking back to his plea of mercy, really, when
when he falls down the stairs.
He falls down the stairs. He's just asking her, please kill me. Please just give me and let me die with some dignity. And she's so, Miriam is just so almost just like resident to even give him that. And because
she has this sense of self-righteousness too, while she's
of
doing
that,
it.
She feels, I think, because she's so in control and that this has happened to her before, that her immortality, right?
Yeah.
Is certain and always will.
Can we talk about the logic of that real quick?
I mean, we can
attempt. Yeah.
So my interpretation of it is that Miriam is sort of like the alpha vampire. She is like eternal
she's in charge
to the core.
Mm-hmm.
She seems to have a life force stronger than all of the people that she infects.
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
And there is an inevitability to the increase, like the very fast aging of her victims after a certain period of time, which is like 200 years or something, I think. Something along those lines.
Something like that. Yeah.
Is that correct? And then the real question I have is, what the hell happens at the end when Susan Sarandon? That to me is just I don't. The math is not math, and
the editing in the last like 10 minutes of the movie is
well, it is awesome, but it leaves out information that I don't know if that is just the script or they just omitted it in the final edit.
There's a cut. Yeah, there's a cut of this movie.
But is that a correct assessment of the general rules of
I think
the
so.
hunger?
Yeah, like that she is able to live a longer life than all of her companions, and so she is constantly shuffling through them, but she also feels such an attachment that she can't ever like really let them go at the same time.
So she could kill them but doesn't? Is that, or they never actually die?
Well,
they don't ever die because she can't bring herself to kill them. I think she has.
I think their spirits never. I think their spirits never die because it clearly states that, like at the end of the film, like those are the things. And I think her, and correct me if I'm wrong, Josh, if this was where you were going, but her unwillingness to grieve and let go is her downfall ultimately, I think, in the end. At least that's how I kind of interpret it, as because they sort of all those past lovers and all those past feelings and all those past, relationships, they're her downfall in the end.
I don't know what really,
I don't know if
physically
that fits.
triggers that though.
Yeah,
like,
I don't know.
Sequence.
I don't understand.
Love the imagery that they show, but
yeah, exactly.
I do watch it and I'm like, okay, why is she now like dying? I don't understand what.
Why
exactly
is she
happened.
Like she has now replaced the alpha? I don't really understand. Yeah,
I don't really get that.
It's like
murky.
because like essentially like at the end it says, spoiler alert for The Hunger, by the way, it's like in 1983, like it's 41 years old. It implies that Sarah now is the one in full control, right? She is the alpha.
Well, I think it definitely states that.
Yeah, it definitely like just like states that as like she survived. She's moved to London,
and she's now she has her captive in a coffin.
Yeah,
too.
Yeah, exactly. So,
but I don't know. Like as I said, what like
I don't know where she learned that either. She didn't have a lot of time with her. She's just like kind of figuring that out. I mean, like, but. What do you think? You guys think of Sarandon in this? Because I do think,
babe.
I do think that. Well, yes, but I do think that whole storyline is a little. It's a little shortchanged, don't you think? Like it feels a little. I
think their affair is incredibly effective.
Yeah,
and that might be entirely superficial. But it works. If you want to talk about moods and vibe, they are two valuable assets in establishing that particular mood.
Look, I understand, it may not work on me quite on the same level, but I, very
What?
much understand the appeal.
Josh.
Yeah.
No.
But also what really works about I think their relationship in the beginning is that yes, it feeds into the whole like just vibes notion of this movie because you can just totally get the sense of why somebody, especially if you put it in the context of a vampire story, that there is just this incredible appeal and allure to this character that you're introduced to. And while the movie never really makes it clear, like if she has, that kind of power to hypnotize people into her grasp, you can still feel it. I mean, just look at Catherine Deneuve in this movie. You can understand why somebody would be drawn to her. And I think the movie does a really good job of at least establishing that atmosphere between them that you can really get it. That even though, yeah, it does feel a little quick in terms of how like fast they do kind of fall into each other. But I think it works for the movie for sure. I think that you get that dynamic really quickly, and I think those performances help you along the way in a great deal. And yeah, I don't have any problem with it. I think it's totally believable for the type of movie that it is.
Yeah, again, it's all about evoking that feeling, and it evokes it very effectively. It's that tight storytelling that Tony Scott would become so famous for later on in his career, but he's doing it here instead of doing it in a political thriller, he's doing it here in this erotic romance. But it's the same tools that he's really playing with, but he's good at it.
Very good at it, I think. And I gotta say, one of the funniest scenes I've seen in a recent movie is when Sarah goes to dinner with Tom after their first encounter, and Tom's just like, well, what the hell did you guys talk about for 3 hours? Like that whole just like overblownness at dinner.
And she's basically just like, stuff.
We just talked about stuff and
just talk about stuff.
Yeah, we just talked about stuff. It's not
my
that big
favorite
deal.
line is when he's like saying about the amulet, whatever that is that she gives her, and says like, "Oh, that's like really strange for her to do," and her response is, "Yeah, well, she's European."
Yeah, like almost like not for her. You know what I mean? Like you would know. Like it's so. It to me when I was watching it, I was just kind of laughing because I was like,
that was a very funny scene.
And that
is funny like, coming from a European. In that sort of like, I understand I'm playing now the game of American cinema, and this is how Americans think of Europeans. I mean, it's very interesting. There's a little bit of like tinge of a little Verhoeven-y type of sardonic humor in there. So Tony Scott rocks.
Yeah. But no, I think also too, like going back to that, like the idea of a presence still like. It's not that many days departed from John, and yet the disposability of him.
I feel like it's his the body. Next day.
It's like it is like blink. Okay, I'm moving on now. I've been with a guy for like 200 years. Or whatever.
For her, what's the difference in 200 years and a day?
And a day,
it's infinity.
Exactly, and it's. I mean, I do think that. I know that it was very scandalous. This movie was very scandalous. It when it came out, like people were talking about this sex scene like it like killed the Pope or something, and it certainly
almost did.
I mean, well, that's why we had two of them for a little while, right? I mean, what?
Had a backup.
Yeah,
we had a young one.
We had a young one, and then we had that's true.
And we had two.
God, that was. Did you guys ever watch that show? Did you ever watch The Young Pope? No,
The Young Pope. I watched the first episode. Thought it was pretty good. Didn't watch it anymore.
Just didn't watch anymore.
That's called How Jay Watches TV.
Wasn't that Paolo Sorrentino?
Yeah, and you're not a big fan of Sorrentino.
Yeah, that's
right?
why I didn't watch it.
But it had Jude Law, so that should have balanced it out, right, Josh? You're not into Jude Law?
I also don't watch. I just don't watch TV in
filmmaker
general, so.
Supersedes lead performer.
I don't think that's the case. I don't think that's the case.
Yeah, I don't. Watch
that one
it
was.
Yeah.
Okay. Is he just like you don't like his vibes?
Yes, I think he's full of himself.
Okay.
Wow.
Well, aren't you going to Cannes and seeing his?
Yeah, I'm well aware.
It's
probably going to be our best director nominee from Cannes this year.
Is it like the? It's like with Gary Oldman, right? right?
Yeah. Although I don't think Gary Oldman is in it that much. I think
It's
he's
just
actually
like,
only has a very small role, but he's the
okay.
most famous person in it, so people
I
say it
just assume
stars
it.
him.
So,
Yeah.
okay. All right. Do you know what it's about?
Nope.
Okay, cool.
It's
That's
about a young pope.
okay. Young Mank. There you go. Young Mank. It's a Mank prequel. Don't. No.
No, we don't need to get into
No,
that.
we don't need to get into that. It was
No.
just a joke, and you had to do it, didn't you, Josh?
Well, it was involuntary.
I know. You were just like,
I love it when you have I love it on Letterboxd when they have a TV show on there. I'm looking at Paolo Sorrentino's. They're pretty selective about what TV shows they put on, but they've got the young pope on there, and you look at the runtime, and it's like 546 minutes.
yeah,
They
but
need it for
then,
TV shows. Put episodes. How about that?
yeah, just
Or
put
don't put TV shows on.
Oh boy!
or maybe get rid
Twin
of that.
Peaks, is it a movie?
Create
People are still
another service for
asking.
that if you want to do that.
Twin
Yeah.
Peaks: The Return, best movie of the 21st century.
Oh, stop it! What are you, like the LA Film Critics Association? Small X is the best picture of the year. It's like, no, it is not. That's 5 movies, so it's an anthology. But no, I think that the sex scene is it feels it is very well shot, and it's beautiful, and it's very provocative, and it's spicy, but it's also for the way in which you are to believe potentially if these two are going to connect. It's very effective in portraying that, and I think that
Very evocative.
yeah, and I think Scott is actually which is saying a lot in the 1980s. I think of the films I've seen, and definitely of the erotic thriller is known of this era. I think it's actually kind of tame given its reputation. Like people went kind of crazy on this thing.
With that.
No, I think people kind of went freaking nuts for this thing, and you're like that's what they got mad at back in 1983. Good lord.
Well, for the time,
I guess, but I'm
understand.
like. I mean, like,
I would argue even for later, it's a lot more explicit than Top Gun. Again, this is entirely superficial.
I know,
Jay
we're
over
just
here, where I'm like, this made me feel differently than some of those over scenes that you're talking about.
Well, I know, but I guess I'm just like, we're living in this time, we're living in, like, I don't know, a post-cruising world, and other, movies of the 70s that went very provocative and out there.
Sure.
I'm just kind of like, this is what got the tabloids going, but I'm sure it's because it involved Sarandon and had Bowie's name on it, and Deneuve, and yeah, I get it.
I mean, you can point to
involved.
other films, sure. I mean, geez, when did Straw Dogs come out? Like
right.
5 years earlier.
Yeah, exactly.
But
still,
I think it is
I think it's beautiful, though. I think it's
meant to be erotic.
Yeah, it's meant to be, a connection point for these two for everlasting love, and I think that's
overt eroticism makes people uncomfortable.
Yes,
especially in America.
Yes.
Well, I mean, that's like the big thing.
Well, she's European. So,
well, that's what makes them even more uncomfortable with Americans, because it's like,
yes, exactly.
Well, that's why
watch this.
Yeah, well, that's even like, I mean, like, Tom feels like the audience going into, like, what do you mean you're hanging out with another woman and she's beautiful and she gave you a gift? Like, what the hell is wrong with you? Like, that's
and that's also the other thing to consider too, is that it's not just evoking eroticism, but it is evoking that between two women, which
exactly
is always going to be button pushing for a lot of people. And I think especially in the 1980s, like, I can totally understand why that subject matter was very controversial for a lot of people. Yeah, watching it now, to me, like, that is not the most shocking thing. The most shocking thing is when the kid dies. Like,
he like straight up kills the kid.
That is the most disturbing.
That scene is amazing.
It is.
I think that is the one scene where they really adopt classical vampire imagery. They're really leaning into shadow, and the score shifts a little bit, and that's when it is a vampire movie. And I love also that it kind of just
desperate
splits itself off in that way. And yeah, the makeup is amazing. He looks terrible. Are you sure you're not his dad? The girl is great in this movie, I think.
I just love him John sitting in the waiting room, and within this, like, what is it, like 45 minutes? No, it's like 2 hours
It was
or
like
whatever.
2 hours, yeah.
In 2 hours, he's just completely deteriorated, and like,
Oh yeah, that's
all of
awesome.
her,
Yeah.
all
Oh,
of
when
her
he shakes her, she's
research.
like, "You promised me it's going to be 15 minutes," and she's
Yeah.
like, "Yeah, sure,
Sure,
weirdo. Okay,
sure, dude.
I'll try.
But then, like,
yeah."
she's this research kind of doctor science. I mean, it almost looks like she's in like this big giant focus group thing. And then
She's working at the same facility as Rise of the Planet of the Apes.
Thank you. And I love that basically from that point when she sees him de-aged in that time frame, the rest of the movie does not give a shit about whatever work she is doing, because that kind of becomes her because that kind of becomes her fascination, right?
No,
More
yeah,
than
yeah.
than the work that she's doing. Anything else, it doesn't matter, because she's consumed by wanting to know what the hell this is, and that's what lures her into Miriam's path. You know?
Yeah, I mean, I just already think the movie is from the get-go rather disinterested in what work she's doing.
No, I agree. I just
because
on
it's
the,
like
but
it's
just
about,
Josh on like the basic level.
yeah,
You know what I mean?
because
Like
in
how
the
a story
beginning
would
it's
go.
it's like, okay, she's doing something with sleep.
Monkeys?
She
Yeah.
wrote the book on that, which, first of all, love how there's like a huge line for this like scientific book that she wrote, as if it was like some fiction
She
bestseller.
probably had an interview on Dick Cavett or something. You know,
Probably.
People
So
were going crazy.
But it's like there's a sleep study, but then there's also something about, like, stopping the aging process too, and then there's blood work. It's like I don't know exactly what the research is that
And they're
she's doing.
dabbling
It's just
in
like generally
She was kind of,
science-y.
in many ways, she was the first Joe Rogan.
Oh, for God's sake. Don't do this. Don't ruin a good time by bringing stupid shit up.
Yeah. So I mean, the movie already like kind of hand waves whatever it is that she's really working on to begin with. It's only meant to be the entryway to get into the world of these vampires, which is fine for this kind of a movie.
Yeah, no, for sure.
And also just the imagery of the monkeys in the opening scene is worth whatever shenanigans we need to get to. I mean, it's just,
that is great. I love the monkey decomposing, even though decomposition would not work like that, even in that scenario. It's
Correct.
like, just because the monkey died doesn't
it's
mean
not like,
that it starts decomposing.
Just because they aged more, it doesn't mean that the physical world impacts them.
That's not how
faster.
decomposition works.
But I do want to get back to what you were saying, Josh, which is sort of earlier about like I agree with you, because it is two women, these characters, yet the reaction to it would be scandalous. But it is also interesting about how Miriam and John have gone years and years and years, right, of doing exactly the same thing, living, surviving, killing, having sex, playing the cello, doing all these things. Like it's like breathing for them, right? The minute he's kind of gone, right? The minute he goes and he does something crazy, and then she starts going down this path with Sarah, and it becomes about these two women potentially having that kind of a relationship. That's when interested parties are come into the fold. That's when the thing starts to crumble within itself. Like I think like it's not intentionally speaking about, how, homosexual relationships or lesbian relationships are very much more scrutinized by media or the public, or just in general, during any time, more than like a straight relationship would be. And you can kind of hide through all that, through essentially killing anyone, right? But then when this relationship starts to crumble, there is a lieutenant that shows up to the door and wanting to speak to the husband about potentially why this little girl is missing, which I gotta say, is it Dan
Hedaya himself.
Dan Hedaya coming in,
one of the great chins.
Just having one of the best voices, really, of just presence in a movie. And it was just like, oh, they got Dan Hedaya to come in here for like 2 scenes and just kind of like knock him out of the park, kind of do like almost like the Harvey Keitel kind of role that would, if they remade this movie, like it felt like Keitel would be like the guy to come and do this, or the Michael Shannon of it all, where he's just like, I'm just gonna come be weird and cool for just like 5 minutes of your movie and kind of.
I have a very special relationship with Dan Hedaya because
really.
Yeah, so there's a podcast called Munson's at the Movies that I've been a guest on several times, and they,
Oh,
where we go over directors' filmographies, they do actors' filmographies. They do it
Oh,
over the
okay.
course of one episode, and they gave me a
they
list
do
of
a
5
whole.
people.
They do a whole episode on one person's filmography.
Yeah, I just did Will Ferrell, and it was like he's been in a lot of movies. Yeah, it's good. But no, it's a good podcast, and they sent me a list of actors. They give you 5 actors, and they say, "Hey, pick one of these guys." And if it was, I don't remember exactly who it was, but if it was Al Pacino, Robert De Niro, Gene Hackman, and Dan Hedaya, I was like, let's do Dan Hedaya. Let's do it. Let's do Dan Hedaya. So I've watched a lot of Dan Hedaya movies, and I remember when they.
I wish you
They
were
came
making this up, but I damn well know that you are not. I just,
No, I
would
absolutely am not.
willingly make up this story.
Yeah, no. This feels like the most Jay pick to pick.
Dan
Like,
Hedaya would not make up this story.
yeah, Dan Hedaya would be like, "You picked me."
And so
You've already said
I mean,
the name Dan Hedaya way more than I think anybody has in the last.
I feel like he's
30
gonna
years.
pop up. I feel like he's gonna pop up in this episode like a Beetlejuice.
No, but I remember coming up to this movie, and it was.
He's still alive. He's still kicking it. He's still making
alive.
movies.
But everybody, all the other people on the podcast were like, "Oh, I've never seen this movie," and I was like, "Oh, this movie rules! It's like the sexiest, most accomplished perfume commercial ever made. You have to see this movie." And then also Dan Hedaya is in it. But anyway, Dan Hedaya is just a special guy to me. Clueless, he's great in Clueless. Come on.
So
now.
he was in. So recently, I'm looking up Dan Hedaya right now.
Oh, geez, has he been in stuff recently?
So the last TV credit he has is in 2016 for a show called Odd Mom Out, and the last movie he did 2 movies in 2021. He did a movie called The God Committee. No, nothing.
I'm looking at the God Committee right now. Look at this. Look at this. So this looks like a direct-to-video movie.
Yeah, but look at the
Kelsey Grammer,
cast.
Julia Stiles, Janine Garofalo,
And
Coleman Domingo.
Um,
Excuse me.
Wait a minute, Jay.
Mhm.
Academy Award nominee Coleman Domingo. Now,
Yeah, it's a 98-minute movie. I'm guessing Coleman Domingo is in that movie for 90
5 minutes.
seconds.
It looks like he's playing a priest in it too.
Father Dunbar.
Father Dunbar.
Oh, God,
And
Vertical Entertainment. Yeah, this is.
yeah, that movie doesn't exist. And
Probably
then there's
good.
and then Dan
Oh,
Hedaya
yeah,
is
the
in
Marco
was in
quality.
he was in a horror film called Slapface.
Slapface.
Slapface. Yeah.
Y'all seen those videos of that?
Good movie.
You know that Slap League? You seen that one where you just slap people in the face
Yeah, that
as hard as
always makes
possible?
its way, yeah,
Wait, what?
That is astounding.
Wait, what are you talking about?
It's
You never
like
seen that?
a sport, quote unquote.
They
where
basically
people
set up
just-
like their arm wrestling, and they
Oh,
slap
you
each
mean
other.
like yeah. I thought it was like some viral thing you're talking about. Like
No,
it's
no,
a
this is
challenge, like the
organized
ice bucket
league.
thing. Yeah, it's like they're
I think
dressed like
the UFC has sort of adopted.
well,
it.
they kind of look like they're dressed in like high school wrestler uniforms. Almost, it looks like, or
I
they're
thought
in the
they just were
UFC.
regular clothes.
Yeah,
Basically.
no, it looked like.
I mean, no, it looks like they're wearing Under Armour gear or something.
Yeah, maybe, but yeah, they just kind of like wind back and slap each other.
Slap
in the
each
face.
other in the face. Yeah,
I don't know the purpose as to why you would want to do that.
money,
I mean, I guess, but like,
pride.
You
Wouldn't
have no
that-
other athletic ability, and this is the only thing you can do.
I mean, like, I guess, but like, would they just? I don't know. This
I have
makes-
many
this makes
questions
me
about the
hurt.
rules. Can you hit them with just the heel of your?
I think it's
palm?
like if you
Can you
get
do
palm, like is
or
it
is that a
about fingers?
violation?
Like yeah, it's like palm can be like how far can your hand go to hit someone?
These are all great questions.
Because if you get wrist in there, are you going to break your wrist? Or are you going to like hurt yourself?
I'm making
Do
a
you wear
movie a la God, I can't remember the name. What's the Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling movie?
Oh my god, what? What? Sylvester Stallone arm wrestling
Oh
movie?
yeah. See, I'm not a big fan of Stallone's movies. I was not really into his filmography, but that does sound very familiar.
That it is definitely a movie.
Over the top?
Over the top, yes.
I was thinking it was
course.
like over something. Yeah.
Over the top.
Mhm.
The
Over
fact
the top.
that the fact that I had to look that up on my computer.
Yeah, but I'm making a movie kind of in that same vein. It's
So this is
called
like
Under the Palm.
Well, so wouldn't it just be like kind of like when they just remade the Roadhouse movie and they added the UFC component? You could just do Over the Top, and instead of in that league, you're putting it in this league if you want.
Yeah,
to.
exactly. But it's called Under the Palm.
Under the okay, but like Over the Top, that's just you could still use Over the Top. Like you don't have to change
in theory,
it.
if you're doing your palm over the top, perhaps
You don't, yeah, or it's over your head, so therefore it's over the top. Like I don't think you have to go too far, Jay. You got IP. Like you're really, who would you get to star in it?
You got IP over the top.
The star of this film, of course, will be who's
Dan
the guy?
Well, Dan
who's the
Hedaya
guy
would
from
be in it.
who's the guy from The Idea of You?
Oh, Nicholas
Galitzin.
Galitzi. Yeah.
Don't.
I
look
want to
at
say
that guy.
Galitzin
He's
because
going
I
to be
think
the
that's the
star.
character from Mission Impossible. So I keep wanting to say Galitzin.
Wait, is he going to be in Mission Impossible?
No, but there's a character in Mission Impossible
character.
whose name is like Alexander Galitzin, and so that's why I keep calling him by that name. I don't think that is his name, but that's what I keep.
I just didn't really want him to be. Jay and I have kind of completely sold stock on this guy, and
I'm out on him.
the Nicholas. How are we pronouncing it now?
Galitzin is fine.
Galitzin
That's
is fine.
Yeah.
We'll go with that. Yeah, and wasn't a fan of Red, White, and Royal Blue. I don't think he's terrible in Bottoms, but Jay thinks he's like an abomination in that
he
movie.
is so bad in Bottoms.
Do you think it's the character ridden, or do you think it's just like the performance?
Both.
Okay. Well, Jay hates women. We've clarified that now on the show.
He was an internet boyfriend. I feel like he is now talking too much.
Yeah, he's an
reel
internet
it
boyfriend,
back.
and now he's in that.
Josh, you
Anne
seen The
Hathaway
Idea
movie?
of You?
Yeah, have you seen The Idea?
I
of You?
have not. No.
No, really?
I heard that it was fine, but like I'm full on Harry Styles fan fiction. There's the level of movies, the number of them that are actually inspired by Harry Styles fan fiction is
Wait, what are you talking
more
about?
than you would think.
Really?
No, yeah, this is inspired by the Olivia Wilde, Harry Styles, which I didn't know. I actually at work today, I was talking to one of my coworkers. I said, "Oh, I saw a movie you might like," and she was like, "Oh, what'd you see?" I said,
The Idea of
the
You.
new Anne Hathaway movie, The Idea of You on Amazon." And she said, "Oh, the Harry Styles movie." And I said, "What are you talking about?"
Oh, so you didn't know? So like the glass was shattered for you in the reveal.
Yeah. This is about the.
I think when you think of,
Harry Styles fling.
I think when you think about, well, I don't think so because she's not really coded for Olivia Wilde. It feels like
It is loosely based, obviously, in
On that
the
idea.
Olivia Wilde situation. She was married. It's different, but it was
okay.
yeah. But
I get what you're saying, but I think that
The Idea of You more like loosely the idea of Harry Styles.
there you go.
And it's not the only piece of Harry Styles fan fiction that has been turned into a movie.
Wait, what are the other ones?
There is
Like
a series of
the
movies
Fall
called
Guy?
After. No, it's
Indiana
called
Jones and the
After.
Dial of Destiny.
Destiny, obviously.
I wish, yeah.
Wicked
It's
coming
like-
to theater soon. You know.
No, it's a series of movies called After, which I'm embarrassed to actually know about these movies, but they are
After.
inspired by Styles fan fiction. Yeah.
Why am I researching all this?
I don't
So
know.
After.
Are there
I'm
like-
not familiar with this at all?
no. So
Who's in
it's-
this? Daniel Day-Lewis?
No, the lead, the guy, the Harry Styles guy, is Ray Fiennes' nephew. That Hero Fiennes.
Yes.
Ray
That shit.
Fiennes. Okay, all right. Oh, I've seen the poster for these.
Yeah, but they are inspired by Harry Styles fan fiction. Literally.
Okay, so like, there's like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 films.
Yeah, there's 5 movies. Yeah,
Are
there's
you
5
kidding
movies
me?
in that franchise.
How the hell have we
Holy moly.
started in 20? Well, they're doing kind of like one a year. They
I
seem
think
really
they're
low.
done. I think they wrapped it up, but yeah, they
I've-
got away with 5 movies.
Yeah, so it's after we collide,
Yeah.
after we fell, after ever happy, which would have
After Ever Happy?
It's like a weird way to try to do the happily ever after, but
I get yeah.
Okay, what's
and then
next?
after everything,
Yeah.
and then that's it. And then it says
Okay.
In 2021,
After
it was
Ever Happy.
announced that there would be 2 more installments, a prequel and a sequel.
So are these theatrically released films?
I think so. At least the first maybe 2 or 3 were. I don't know about after that, but I do distinctly remember.
I think
that
they
were advertised in theaters.
I think they are going to make a one called Before, which is a prequel, and that comes out in 2025.
Before : an after story.
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry,
The
Rachel
after-
Linklater.
the
It
after
looks like
saga.
another Before movie came out before yours, you know. Do you think they could get Dan Hedaya to do any of those?
Oh,
Well,
Hedaya is free.
Yeah. If he's making stuff like the God Committee, I'm sure that he's
Also,
got
I think he's
some
very
open
old
in his
at this
schedule.
point.
Yeah.
He's 83.
He's pretty. Well, he can still act.
Yeah, he can still act.
Ridley's out here still making epics.
Schrader's out here talking about making new movies with questionable people. So, you know, George Miller's making Mad Max.
Anything less.
George Miller's
the
making
new-
Mad Max movies, you know.
The new Schrader Spacey joint, that'll be.
I mean, he didn't get convicted.
I'm not going to finish that sentence.
No, Josh, don't justify what he had to say.
I am
This
literally
is honestly,
quoting
this is
Schrader.
the problem.
No, I know you are. I know you are.
Josh-
Just don't do it, Josh. Don't buy
Josh
into
will
it.
not. You don't even know how many Josh just will not stop talking about Spacey on this
Yeah,
podcast.
it's
The editing for all of
we
his
have had to
episodes
that
are
wrong,
outrageous.
you know?
no, Josh, no. The Hunger. Do you guys have anything else to talk? I mean, it feels like a lot more to talk about from
I mean,
this
speaking
movie.
of Kevin Spacey,
Wait, what? Is he? He's not in this.
No, that's not.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, like, what the hell? What movie
The
did you
Hunger.
watch?
just somebody with an insatiable hunger.
Oh boy. I feel like Josh just learned the wrong lessons from this show. No, but
But we've
this-
reached the point now where yes, this is
we're
this is
past the point.
Show
Of,
falls apart.
this is past the point of
Oh
no
no,
return.
it's
Yeah.
crumbling between our fingers.
Yeah.
Oh
We
no,
have
the
fallen off the balcony.
Oh no, I guess the mummies are after us now.
Which
How about
yes, doesn't
little
make any
Willem
sense.
Dafoe?
yeah, Willem
Look at it,
Dafoe.
That's it. Yeah.
Yeah, blink
Yeah.
and you'll dismiss it. Yeah. Sorry. I know. That wasn't my best. I'm sorry, Josh. Guess I should make more Kevin Spacey pointed jokes. I'm sorry. But no, I mean, Josh, you were going to say something about the mummies there?
Yeah, that it doesn't make any sense really why it's happening at that point. Fully
It's
admit
so
that.
visually cool though. Like
But
I
yeah,
can't
It
the
is.
thing.
That
It
is. That is
is.
the whole thing about it.
like I mean, there's like 2 editors on this movie. There's like 1 billion people on the score. There's like a bunch of just
I mean, it is. It's
At a
just like,
certain
why
point,
is this
it's just like-
happening? Who cares?
it's like
Yeah,
at this
I don't care.
by that point in the movie, I feel like the third act of this movie, yeah, it is completely like, okay, we've got a really interesting movie for 2/3 of this. We don't know really how to end it. We kind of all came up with like 4 different endings, and we're just gonna do them all. And none of them actually like, you know.
It ends the way that I think you would expect it to end. It's just missing the reason for why it is now happening. Because I think thematically, it makes total sense for her to be surrounded by her past
Yes.
loves. And as
Yes.
she dies, they die too. And I love the
Replaced
imagery that we
by
get.
Sarah.
I mean,
Yeah,
I mean, what do we think about that? Because like, I find Sarah as a character when she clearly does get drawn in to Miriam, but then I guess there's just this immediate regret. But then now it is that she then turns on her so much to the point where it like almost like then it makes Miriam the villain at the end of this movie. Like it's like
I mean,
I
Sarah-
mean, she kind of is just like, I guess, like, I never wanted this. I never wanted that. I just wanted you. Right? Is that what,
Well,
like, it's kind
I
of.
think that Sarah absolutely probably recognizes that, yes, she can live forever, but it comes with a very terrible price. And I also do love that scene previously when she does kill her boyfriend. I really do love the construction of that scene.
Yeah,
and I
that
love that we
rocks.
don't even see the kill. We just see her take, the little knife out, and which is also a really cool device. I love that in the film.
It's so little.
I know, but it's great. I
Just
love
like
little-
this little, like, this little cross almost like thing.
Yeah, like
like,
that whole, it's this like very tiny little dagger.
the way that
in it,
the way the sound works on it.
Yes.
Too. Like
yeah,
the
it's
whoosh,
great. The opening,
like
the way that they
so
both
good.
use it in the opening sequence is just.
It's almost like
Yeah.
it's almost not to try to like make it sound like anything, but it kind of looks like it the way it is wrapped around their necks and the way that they pull it out. It almost looks like, you know, in the mob movies when guys sitting in the front seat and they got the wire behind them and they're like going to choke them out that way. You know what I mean? It almost kind of it has that kind of like just very. It's not clean. What they're about to do is not very clean. It's a lot of foreplay leading up to it, and like
they like
it is
to
a
show the
murder
cut.
weapon. Yeah, they like to
the
watch you
incision.
bleed. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
Very surgical.
and so she's already killed somebody, and she knows that this is going to be the price for everlasting life, and decides that that's not worth it. Like, is it maybe rushed a little bit to get to that point? Sure, but again, the execution is just so great because I love that scene when they're embracing, and then you don't even like know exactly what happens at first. You just know that somebody's been stabbed in the neck, and then it's this frantic editing that's happening, and then she falls to the floor, and you understand that she doesn't want to live that way. And yeah, is it a shorthand to get there? Sure, but I don't care because it's so effective in terms of the execution, and it really lands with a great impact.
I guess what I'm saying is like I agree with you, Josh. Aesthetically, like that's the place it's supposed to go, but it is missing a couple of things there.
Yeah,
To tie it all together, to
It
understand
works on an emotional level and a thematic level, if not a literal level.
Yeah, but I think from
But who cares?
Yeah.
I do a little bit because like I feel that Miriam's motivations are completely pointed out, and even as it gets
She's
more
a very
ridiculous,
passive character.
yeah, it's like I understand Miriam's point of view throughout it, but the goal of the second half of this movie is to put us in the mindset of Sarah going through this, and I don't necessarily think that they think that all the way through, and
I
have
agree.
have enough of it from her perspective to get to the point of maybe making a realization of what she wants rather than just like showing it. We don't get.
I think she's.
you know.
I think it's shown pretty clearly that she's an obsessive when it comes to her research, and then when she meets people who are, it starts to confront this idea of science versus the supernatural, and that I think there's a lot to dig into on that front. And then it's her sort of accepting the supernatural as the reality within the world of the film, rather than all of this research that she's committed herself to for.
I get
so
that.
long.
I just think that the conclusion of this movie ends with her essentially being now Miriam being the one in full control.
Yeah,
of
now
this.
she's.
And I never once got the impression that she wanted even to be immortal, let alone wanting all
Her
of that
shift
power
is
now.
definitely very fast.
It's very quick. That's all I'm saying. And I think that that's a fair thing.
I agree with you. Yeah, I said
Yeah.
I don't.
We don't
like,
disagree with that. Really, it's just we're able to kind of put.
But
that
also,
aside
like-
because it looks so.
Yeah,
fun.
I mean, you
exactly.
guys have
It's
seen
like,
this
it
movie
doesn't-
more
it
than I
doesn't-
do.
It doesn't.
But, like, it doesn't. I
hurt
didn't
the movie
ruin the
as
movie.
much
I'm
for
just
me as it
saying.
does
I'm
for
just
you.
saying. Like again, like it's like a 3.5, 4-star movie for me. It would probably be more on a rewatch because it's just the first time I'm watching it. But yeah, I still get over it because I thought the mummy part was cool. I think like the idea of the past coming back and biting her in the ass, the stuff in the elevator too is really cool. Like
biting.
like literally. Like it's
Well,
also
it really
her.
isn't biting though, because they
No.
don't have like the fangs at all. Which again,
No.
that's another thing I actually really love about this is that it doesn't indulge in all of the traditional vampire
yeah.
lore, and I
I agree.
love it
like
when
that a
movies
lot.
do that. Yeah,
And almost makes them. I mean, they're just blood suckers at that point.
Yeah.
They're not, they're it almost like it feels like they're above putting their fangs into somebody at that point. It's like the way that they've learned to do it is they're more surgical. They're more, the cut is the cut. It
Use
doesn't matter.
Tools. They're
You know what
less
I mean?
animalistic.
Yes, exactly. Like, we are beyond that point. And I think that
But also, they
showing
might
that-
just not have them.
Yeah.
It appears they just don't have them.
It does,
Which is
yeah,
cool.
it does,
Which is a cool
yeah,
case.
it's fine.
Yeah,
Love it. I actually like
Yeah.
that choice a lot.
yeah. It doesn't make it makes them it makes them monsters in a very different way, and almost in a more human, relatable.
It's just one of those things where it disorients you a little bit
Yeah.
versus the imagery that you're kind of accustomed to seeing in a movie like that, which is why it's so cool when it does lean into it when they kill, what's her name? Alice, the young girl, when he
Yeah.
does kill her, when they lean into that a little bit more, I think it makes it so much more effective.
God, just the way he's like,
Scene's amazing.
he's drawing his like last almost breaths there, but also the way he's like salivating too. And also there's a hope there of potentially like, well, maybe this is what will make me better.
It.
Yeah, can reverse it. And it's the fact that he is killing someone so young in order to then do that, but it doesn't work. Yeah,
I love that choice too. I
Yeah.
love the fact that we get to the end of that scene and you would almost expect the motivation being like this is the way for him to try to get younger again, but it doesn't work. And it was like all for naught. And it just makes it even more disturbing that actually then happened and so much more tragic the circumstances. Like I love that decision because it might actually be my favorite scene in the movie, that death scene, because it is just so chilling and the result of it is incredibly tragic.
Do you guys
Well,
have
it is this young girl she is naturally young, as we know people to be young. And this guy who at the beginning of the movie looked young-ish, he was a younger adult, but he's been alive for 200 years. And so for him to all of a sudden prioritize, I need to make it to 250 rather than her make it to 13, it takes on this whole different level of meaning. It's effective. This movie is very thoughtful. Again, it's just the fact that this is Tony Scott is just so insane. Imagine a world where this is successful and Tony Scott is making.
Yeah,
I don't know.
It is very atypical of his usual style, but I do think you can still pinpoint some things, like the quick cutting, for instance.
The
that
editing,
does feel like something
editing.
Would, like, especially as we talked about later in his career, he would kind of go overboard. But you can kind of see the seeds.
It's the music video commercial director in
commercials, especially. Like I think knowing that background from him, there's a lot of sequences in this movie that, not in a derogatory way, but do feel like the kind of stylized, glossy commercial aesthetic.
Alluring.
But it works really well for this movie.
Yeah,
agreed.
Do you guys have a favorite Bowie performance from his career?
I mean, the one that I think about the most is from Twin Peaks Fire Walk with Me.
I knew you were going to say that. I knew you were going to say it.
Yeah, I mean, if I was going to say the one I think about the most, it would be Labyrinth, if I'm going to be honest. But honestly, I think actually my favorite performance is in The Prestige.
Yeah.
He's great in The Prestige.
I remember
when perfect casting for that character.
Honestly, again, Nolan's just kind of perfect at casting and getting the best. And I love The Man Who Fell from Earth, and I love Labyrinth. He's just having a ball there, it seems like. And I do love his just little bit as Pontius Pilate in The Last Temptation of Christ, and I think he's really good here. It's just kind of.
He was a good actor.
I would have loved
to see. Need to watch Merry Christmas, Mr. Lawrence. I've never seen that.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either. And it's also like I when watching this movie, I was like, well, of course he played a vampire, and it's like, wow, I kind of want the whole movie, a whole movie about them before all this, because his deterioration's so quick. It's probably also the reason why
I love those little teases they give you at first, where before you really understand that it's a vampire movie, there are those dream sequences where you see him in like the barn playing his cello, and you're like, what exactly is going on here? And then as you come to realize this is actually him, these are memories that he's having, reflecting on. I think that's a really cool way of telling this particular story.
Well, I was kind of thinking a lot about how when I was watching this movie, I was thinking, God, I feel like the Wachowskis watched this movie a lot. Like there was some just sort of the way in which the club sequences are shot, the way in which their outfits in that feel very similar to that of The Matrix and
It's a pretty contemporary movie.
Yeah, it feels like the label of the cult classic that it got, and then it earned it. We were talking offline before this about the idea of what a cult classic is, and this is, I mean, this was not received very well. This was kind of critically reviled. I mean, Roger Ebert gave it like 1.5. Raj did
Ebert
not like
hated
it.
There's a
Raj
good,
did not like it, and there was
good
at the
quote
time I
from
think
Ebert too.
there was at the time it was like if Raj didn't like it, that was pretty big. Like we don't have that really anymore. What was the quote, Jay? Do you have the quote with you?
Let me find it. I have it in the book. I'm reading a book, of course.
Of course. What's the book, Jay?
This book is called Tony Scott, a Filmmaker on Fire.
Of course,
written by Larry Taylor.
Of course, fire is in the title because it has to be. Man's about the elements. But yeah,
I'm gonna find it in here.
But I love him I love him too, Josh, in The Prestige. I think he's.
Yeah, as I said, I think it's like just perfect casting for.
Man, what an
character.
entrance! What an entrance, by the way, too, to come through like he understood. I have David Bowie in this movie. I need to give him an entrance like no other. And yeah.
Yeah, and it just taps into his like mysterious aura so well that you want to figure him out, but you also kind of don't because you don't want to ruin the complete mystery of him at the same time. And also at that time when The Prestige came out, Tesla was not even really somebody that general people I think knew about. Like everybody knows Edison, but I don't think people really understood who he was or that rivalry between them. And so for the time, it's even an even greater layer of mystery that they've laid on top of it that it is just really tapped into well with casting Bowie.
Well, and then it's also just it now the if you say Tesla, it's not you're not even talking about this figure anymore. You're talking about the current war, which is a movie that doesn't.
Of course, obviously.
Obviously,
Roger Ebert was flatly dismissive of Scott's film, calling it an agonizingly bad vampire movie circling around an exquisitely effective sex scene.
That's right.
Raj. I knew he was going to mention that because
Raj couldn't resist.
Ebert was not shy about
a little horn dog.
telling you when he was horny.
Yeah, he was like, he was very upfront about
exquisitely effective.
Exquisitely effective. He's just like, I don't think he was taking anybody on a date night to that one. I think he was by himself in the back.
Maybe you took Oprah.
They
dated at one point.
I know they did. I would love to know what Oprah Winfrey thought of this movie. Is it one of her favorite things? You never know.
No, the hunger was in Oprah's book club.
You're such a liar, Jay. I almost I almost for half a second believed you there. Is there anything else you guys want to mention about The Hunger? Before we wrap
I'll just say that cinematographer, what's his name again?
Stephen
Goldblatt.
He there's a nice little anecdote from him in the book where he says that he learned how to work with Tony Scott on this movie because Tony every single time was like, this is overlit, this is overlit, this is overlit. And so he said every time he would put 2 more lights than he thought it actually needed in the scene because he knew that Tony Scott would say it was overlit. And so he'd take the 2 away, get what he actually wanted, and then Tony Scott would be like, perfect. That's cool.
That's like the logic that you use when you want to get somewhere on time. So you tell your wife, yeah, it's actually at 7:30.
Exactly.
And you want to get there at 7. And so then, that's just a working relationship at that point. But that's still pretty cool, Jay.
It's awesome.
Josh, any last things you want to say about The Hunger?
I think just this is an awesome movie. And it's funny, Ryan, because I normally think that I am more aligned with your mentality of prioritizing story and character over style. Usually I am, but there's just something about this one that I'm just so in love with the world that it creates that I'm willing to put those other things aside. And I don't do that very often. It is very atypical of me most of the time, but
welcome to the dark side.
But I think Tony Scott just does something with this material that is just so compelling to me.
I'm not always like that though. There are some movies sometimes where I throw out the logic and
Speed Racer, Tenet.
Those are movies that I love that are very aesthetic forward and vision forward, and I think that this is very much like that too. There's other movies that, I think that we all three, this is something that we all really love, is having a point of view so strong that you can feel it as you're watching it, and the confidence that builds off of that. And I think Scott, from the get-go here, has that confidence. And it takes, and sometimes movies, like, what's so great, I think the last point I want to make here is because this movie was reviled, like we mentioned, and it has been re-examined over the years. People have come back and watched it like us and really enjoyed it. Time really is just like the great thing. You know what I mean? Like, we talk about these with series, like we talk about, like, we talked about
fans especially will come back to stuff like this and start to really embrace it.
Well, I mean, like, when we talked about, I keep thinking back to this year, one of my favorite discoveries this year that we talked about on the show, Jay,
The Dial of Destiny. You found The Dial of Destiny.
No. Was when we talked about Freakin' and we did The Hunted, and a movie that, like,
yeah, banger. Yeah,
that just, like, no one talks about, probably even still enough, but has been kind of reevaluated since Freakin's death, and people are like, why didn't we talk about this more? And I think that's just kind of really great, and that's the beauty of not only doing a show like this, but also just the great thing about movies in general. It's like, it doesn't always hit on its first go round, but it'll find its audience eventually.
That's kind of the story of Tony Scott's career to a certain extent.
It really is. Well,
Tony Scott is one of the most reclaimed directors ever.
Well, no, for sure, because for a while, like, when we were growing up, it was just kind of like
junk.
It was junk. It was also like the people would associate the movies more with the stars rather than him.
Yes,
I would say.
Absolutely.
And now, when you really look at it throughout the filmography and the dives and the watches that we've
there's
done,
a real cohesive vision to the
there's something there that it takes time to figure out. Whether that works for everybody is totally up to them. But I think it definitely does here. And
if you're the younger brother of a successful person, does that make you a Nepo baby?
I mean, he did go and work with him to get started off. You did kind of read that.
He did. Tony, you're a Nepo baby.
But when your batting average though succeeds that, is that okay?
No.
Like, I mean, like, that's the question of all this. Is like, as long as what you did was for good, and
so now we're getting into it's a little Lonzo Ball, LaMelo Ball situation.
Josh is not going to know a damn person you're talking about here.
You just said gibberish to me right now.
No, but I guess it would be like to the extent of, like, most people in Hollywood, of, like, you can tell right away if somebody is a Nepo baby and they don't have it. You know what I mean?
Look, I got nothing wrong with Nepo babies. I just like to bring this up to Russell.
I know you do. I know.
Nepo babies,
they kind of
fascinating.
They weed themselves out.
Well, but like, every industry has Nepo babies. Like, I don't know why we just suddenly decided that it was rampant in the entertainment industry. Because, like,
what was it like?
How do you think the CEO of a major corporation got that job? Because he worked his way up to it? No, his dad had it. Like, everybody has Nepo babies in their industries. Like, this is not specific to the movies.
Not podcasting.
No one. Yeah,
Who are the Nepo podcasters out there?
I don't know. I guess we'll have to find out. Or is our kids going to take over this show, Jay? Is that what you're saying?
Does Joe Rogan have any kids?
I don't.
I believe he does, but
watch out!
Oh, watch out!
They better not start a podcast.
God, I hope not. I don't know, be sponsored by creatine. No, I just feel like, and there was that whole, what was it, the Hollywood Reporter had that whole article about, like, Nepo babies or something, and then, like, it came out to you.
Yeah, that was a weird thing.
That was just like, man, you just sound like a fucking asshole writing that thing. I'm sorry.
However, I will also say that the people who then get mad at the term Nepo babies also need to realize that you did have privileges. Like,
you did have
to acknowledge that.
I agree.
Yeah, like, it's a two-way thing. Like,
when, like, Jamie Lee Curtis,
for sure, but
you could be mad at the obsession with Nepo babies, but Nepo babies can't be mad about the obsession with Nepo babies because they're Nepo babies.
I think also too, the people that acknowledge it, like when Jamie Lee Curtis, when she was winning all of her awards for everything, where she kept acknowledging it, I'm like, Yeah, I already know you're a nepo baby. You don't need to like.
Brian, who's your
wasn't
favorite
about you.
nepo baby?
Ooh,
Oh,
that's actually a good question.
Yeah.
Yeah, Jinx. Josh owes me a Coke.
Yeah.
Um, uh, man, that's really tough. I mean, could I say potentially that one of the best nepo babies was the one we just covered in Sofia Coppola? Like she's a pretty good one.
I mean, that's a very good.
That's a very good
one.
question. That's a very. I mean, Paul Thomas Anderson, does he count as a nepo baby? His dad was like literally the voice of CBS.
Where do you draw the line?
You know what I mean? Like, does Clooney count? Because Clooney's pretty great. You know what I mean? Like, there's a ton. There's a ton of great names that we love. That are nepo babies. It's Josh.
And they have the talent to back it up.
Baby?
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, you gotta. I mean, it's like I'm telling you, they will weed themselves out.
Babies.
Yeah,
Scott Eastwood is not.
Exactly.
He is exactly. It out basically.
Yeah, I mean, like
Spielberg's got kids, but you would not know that they've been in any movies.
Yeah,
even though they have.
Dakota Johnson's a pretty good one. Like I said, she's
Shyamalan's daughter coming soon.
We're gonna find out. She's gonna have a big. She's gonna have a big summer.
Yeah,
I just gotta say,
Kate Hudson's another one.
Kate Hudson is definitely one. She's very versatile in what she does too. It's like
Robert Downey Jr.
Robert Downey Jr. literally is one. Like he's because his father was by name. Yeah. I think that
nice to have acknowledged that in a speech somewhere.
I mean, it's like his messed up.
He made a whole movie about it.
Yeah, he made a whole movie about it. What else do you want? Maybe if they would have nominated,
you think that would have maybe pushed him to say something? But
I know, I agree with you. I agree.
Instead, the stylist, I guess, was.
I like that movie. That movie made me cry.
I will give you.
Yes,
I love Senior. Yeah, I thought it was
really good. I thought it was like, for once he opened himself up and he actually got vulnerable, and it was like, and you're right, Josh.
I need to watch that HBO show he's in.
The Sympathizer. Yeah, I would love. I don't know. I'm waiting for all the episodes to come on, and I'm just going to binge it because
have they? I feel like nobody is talking about this show, which is weird.
I know that is bizarre.
It is weird for them to have a prestige HBO miniseries.
Well, they recently mentioned Oscar winner from Park Chan-wook. Like, why is nobody talking about?
Why does nobody ever talk about Park Chan-wook's
show
stuff? To be fair, Josh, like everybody only talks about Oldboy. They don't talk about like the last 3 things that he's done: The Handmaiden, Decision to Leave, this show, these big things. Like nobody talks about them. But the other thing is, though, if you read certain people, and probably we'll see if he gets nominated or not. But some people believe that he will win an Emmy this year, but we'll see.
That's the prevailing theory, but
we'll see.
My heart's with Jonathan Bailey in that race.
Oh,
America's got the sympathizer fever.
Damn, Jane, that's a really good question. Do you have a favorite nepo?
I'm just gonna say Sofia Coppola.
Okay,
because that's a big. I think there are levels of nepotism. Francis Ford Coppola's daughter is like S tier.
I mean, that's a high bar to clear. Yeah. And she was already handicapped with Godfather 3. So it's
yes, exactly. So everybody already hated her.
Yeah.
I mean, like boom, Jamie Lee Curtis is a pretty big one, regardless of that Oscar win. Like she is an original Scream Queen. I mean, Gwyneth Paltrow was one.
Mm-hmm.
Trying to look at some other ones.
Everybody is one.
Yeah,
Nicolas Cage.
Nicolas Cage. Schwartzman, Jason Schwartzman.
I mean, you could just name the Coppolas. Honestly,
you
name everybody in that family.
There are so many Coppolas out there.
I know.
Chris Pine.
Who is Chris Pine related to?
He's got like people in the industry. It's not like necessarily like they're famous, but they have.
That's what nepotism. Everybody has a connection in order to be successful, and that happens everywhere. When you get hired at like the grocery store, the manager's uncle, found somebody to be a stock boy. Like it's in every single place.
Yeah, like that article was so weird because it just was like this person's connected to a second cousin of this or whatever. It was like getting really in the weeds of it, and it's like, come on, that's also.
Well, it's kind of like, for example, I mean, it's all circumstantial, right? Like Albert Brooks grew up next to Carl Reiner, And then Carl Reiner thought that Albert Brooks was the funniest person in the world. And guess what? I'm happy that
Yeah.
Albert
Well, it's
Brooks
like-
is in the world.
Well, it's like
Excuse me, Albert Einstein.
Yeah. Joel and Ethan Coen, I mean, they were roommates with Sam Raimi. And also Joel's wife was Frances McDormand. Like they all
And
helped
she
each
lived
other.
with Holly Hunter.
Exactly. They all helped each other at a certain
Yeah.
point once one of them broke. Once Blood Simple came out, they all helped each other get shit made.
Everybody has
I
gotten
guess
a
Evil
job
Dead,
because
probably.
of somebody
too.
that they knew. Like we have all done that. We've all been Nepo babies ourselves in some capacity. We just don't call ourselves that because we're not famous, but it's in every industry. And to call it out,
You
in
let your
there
parent
saying
buy you a
one's just-
beer? Nepo baby. You wouldn't have gotten that beer otherwise.
That's true. And that's, yeah, Jay's not wrong.
I think I just put the nail in the
I think you
coffin
just
of
did.
Nepo
I think you
baby.
killed it. I think you killed it with a beer. There you go, buddy. Jay, while
Yes.
you're at it,
Yeah.
we're ready to test your award season knowledge based on the film we just reviewed, which was The Hunger. And a segment that we'd like to call It's an Honor to Get Nominated. I don't know if the segment's going to be used a lot in terms of it, because I feel like you're going to be saying the same answer a lot, potentially. But
Well, in the 90s, there's
some stuff.
some
There's some
that
stuff.
happens.
Ooh.
Maybe in the 2000s,
Like
a little
80s,
too.
90s.
I didn't
yeah,
even know
yeah.
that. Okay.
But in this case, Jay, was The Hunger nominated for anything?
You get nothing. Zero.
Nothing?
Zilch.
Zilch.
Nada.
Oh, I thought you were going to go the full speech there. I thought you were gonna go,
Actually, I
That's-
can't remember it.
I say good day, sir.
Yeah, I thought I was going to do it too, but I couldn't remember it.
Yeah, you just knew the pump part. Yeah, you are correct. It was not nominated for anything here. It was nominated.
Did it have like some Saturn Award nominations?
Yeah, that's some Saturn Awards for costumes and makeup.
Which, you want to read who did the costumes?
Well, yeah. Oh, for the Oscars.
No, for The Hunger. Isn't it a pretty big name? I guess it's a big name to me.
Josh, you want to help me out here?
Isn't it Melina Canonero?
That is correct. Yes, I was
Yeah.
not. It did not. It didn't have it in the nomination, but now it's.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
Yeah.
And she did a lot of Wes
I mean,
Anderson stuff.
Yeah, she
She's-
does Wes Anderson stuff. She
and
won
so
the
f-
Oscar for Barry Lyndon. Yeah.
She also, so there's your
Oh,
Barry
Barry
Lyndon
Lyndon.
connection. She
Yeah.
also did Marie
I'm
Antoinette.
telling you, this movie
Mm-hmm.
really brought Barry Lyndon to mind for me.
She won for Marie Antoinette as well.
Melina Canonero has 4 Oscars in 4 different decades, which I find so cool about
That
her.
rocks.
Damn.
Yeah.
Yeah,
She
Barry
got one from
Lyndon.
The 70s for Barry Lyndon, the 80s for Chariots
Chariots
of
of
Fire.
Fire.
She took the 90s off, but then in 2000s she's got Marie Antoinette, and then in the 2010s it's Grand Budapest.
Yeah. Well, in the 90s, she did get
Mm.
one nomination. It was for Dick
Yeah, but she
Tracy.
didn't win in the 90s.
So
No, but
Chariots
she-
of Fire for Tony's buddy.
Was it Hugh Hudson?
Yeah. The RSA guy, the Ridley
Yeah.
Scott
What
commercial.
do y'all think of the? What do you think of the Chariots of Fire?
I remember barely anything from it. I just the intro. That's it. Which is the
Just
only thing anybody
just the
remembers.
music, right?
Yeah.
Is that
Yeah,
why?
it's-
Is that why it won Best Picture? Potentially, Josh, because of that, just that music.
Maybe we were still in the era of them rewarding, those kind of stately period piece epics too. I mean, Gandhi won the very next year after.
Why
that,
didn't you,
so-
Ryan? Why didn't you ask me that question?
Well, that's fair. I'm sorry. Well, it was such a big year. I mean, like Chariots of Fire beat Atlantic City on Golden Pond, Raiders of the Lost Ark, Reds.
Yeah, it's a little surprising Reds didn't win, especially because Beatty gets director. But
And it got
I guess there's an emotional pull to
supporting
Chariots of Fire
actress
than
too.
maybe. Yeah.
I love Reds. Jay, you seen Reds?
Never seen it.
You never seen Reds?
No, that's one that's like on my immediate watch
I've-
list.
Because you
Josh,
hear
I've-
that it's a 3-hour movie about the Bolshevik Revolution, and you're like,
Oh, I love it. No, it's
It's-
mostly because Ryan and friend of the show, Sophia
Yeah.
Simonello, are just
It's a
constantly
great,
talking about it.
it's a great movie.
I don't know much of a
Oh,
history with Beatty, to be honest.
Josh, no, you got a side
I mean,
look.
well, I
there.
have not seen that movie in a very, very long time. I will
Okay.
also admit. I remember liking it, but not loving it.
I think a rewatch is necessary. The This
Yeah, when I have 3.5 hours to watch a movie, yes, that'll be.
you got a plane trip
Okay.
coming up. You got a plane trip coming up. Don't start.
Josh, I see your letterbox. You're watching movies.
Yeah, you're watching movies. Don't act like you're not.
Yeah, but then you'll also see the trash that I sometimes watch too.
Sometimes you gotta watch trash. Sometimes you gotta watch trash.
Sometimes you have to.
You gotta, you know.
I'm in my trash era.
Well, you're watching a lot of trash action movies, right, buddy?
Oh, love trash action movies.
I mean, those are
Absolutely.
good too.
Those are really good too.
Love Jean-Claude Van Damme movies. Those are a go-to for mine.
I've been watching some JCVD.
Sometimes I just watch,
Hard Target. Oh boy.
boy.
That man was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Truly.
What's cool about Hard Target is they really stretch him as an actor, make him do a Cajun accent.
That is right. I remember that.
1984 Oscars would be the
Yes.
year that we do this. This came out in 93 or 83, sorry,
yeah.
but we would be doing it in 84. The winner for Best Picture was Terms of Endearment. The Big Chill, The
The film
Dresser.
I like a lot.
The Big
Terms
Chill,
of
The Dresser, The Right Stuff, and Tender Mercies were the other Best
Okay.
Picture.
I like this more than The Big Chill, that's for sure.
Yeah, you're not a big Chill guy, right?
More like the Small Chill, in my opinion.
Oh, all right. Okay. I see where we're going here today. Josh, do you like The Big Chill?
I think it's fine. I always have a little bit of a nostalgic memory for it, though, because I remember when I was maybe like 13 or 14 years old, my parents got me like this deluxe soundtrack for the movie because they knew that I loved like oldies. And
Yeah.
obviously that's just all in that movie. And so I have a little bit of a nostalgic connection just because of that. I don't think it's a great movie, but you know, it's fine for what it is.
It's like the ultimate like classic rock movie soundtrack
it's
next to
total boomer bait.
like
Yeah.
that and the Forrest Gump soundtrack.
Yeah.
Give that to your dad on a freaking road trip and he's good to drive you all the way cross country, like easily.
And it is a great soundtrack, don't get me wrong.
It's a very good
And
soundtrack.
I feel like that's the only thing people really remember from that movie is the soundtrack.
I haven't seen it in a long time. I didn't think it was that bad when it, you know.
No, I think it's
That's
fine.
all,
It
but-
just doesn't have a lot of staying power.
I like Terms of Endearment. I'd probably give it to The Right Stuff though. I like The Right Stuff a lot. It's a really good movie.
That's another one I've never seen. And that
You
feels
should-
very J-core.
That's very J-core.
Yeah.
Yeah. I know this is going to deter you because you're not a big fan of this, but Nolan watched that movie and was really inspired by that for Interstellar. But you know,
maybe I won't watch it.
well, I think you should. It's really good. And Interstellar.
Maybe he must have taken
Josh
the wrong
agrees with me.
lessons
Interstellar's
away.
great. We're not going to start this.
It's his best movie.
There you
Interstellar
go.
is an interesting
Interesting
movie
Josh.
that I don't
No.
love.
It
Josh,
is
you
my
know-
favorite Nolan film. Yeah.
Josh, you know what my new favorite Nolan movie is now?
Insomnia. He's an insomnia guy.
I couldn't sleep all night. I think it's Oppenheimer.
I was gonna say it's probably
I think
Oppenheimer.
either that, but I also too like I still love The Prestige. Like that's my movie.
That's good too. I think his
Love
best.
the Prestige.
I still think that Interstellar is my favorite, but I think his best directed film is Dunkirk.
Dunkirk.
Yeah,
is so
Dunkirk.
good.
Yeah,
Tom Hardy's gliding over the Nazis. I cried.
Like I remember watching that movie in IMAX and thinking, this has given me a better sense of immersion than any 3D movie has ever done.
Yeah, it's a remarkable piece of work.
we're gonna have to do Nolan.
Also, Tenet, they do a temporal pincer movement.
Yeah, I feel
Which
like
I
we're
was a
gonna
big fan
Jay. I feel like we're gonna have to do Nolan one day.
It's fine. You
Maybe
know me,
down-
I've turned on
Like
Nolan.
down
I've
the
really come
road,
around on the guy.
like in like
2072.
You know what?
No,
If
I-
you do Nolan, that might be another one where I will ask to be the first episode again because I love following, and I feel like
Not many
sometimes I'm
people-
the only one who loves following, and I
Yeah.
would
we
jump
even
at the chance to talk about that film.
do following?
I think you got to.
Well, now we would.
Yeah, I think we got to. Josh wants to come on.
Now we would. Yeah.
Because
feel like
nobody else is going to defend that movie. So
That's fair. Would you guys nominate The Hunger for anything?
Cinematography,
Cinematography? Okay.
I would
uh,
throw in an editing lineup too.
production design.
All right. So you guys got it in. Let me look here. All right. So let's do editing first. Editing is The Right Stuff won Best Editing. The other nominees were Blue Thunder, Flash Dance, Silkwood, and Terms of Endearment. Gotta love the Flashdance nomination. I think that's actually
Yeah.
pretty inspired.
I have not seen Blue Thunder.
Don't know what that is. I kick it out.
Yeah.
Hunger's pretty
what
good.
the hell is Blue Thunder?
I do not know.
Let me take a look here. Blue Thunder is an American action film. Roy Scheider.
Roy Scheider?
Written by Dan
Malcolm
O'Bannon,
McDowell?
who wrote Alien.
The Blue Thunder Helicopter.
I guess it's like about like, yeah, I guess it's like a
It's
helicopter.
about a helicopter.
Yeah.
Air support.
Air support. Okay. I've never seen it. Guess add it to the list, Jay.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
yeah.
I mean, I guess I can knock out that one then. It's a little unfair because I haven't seen it, but I'm fine with the other ones being in here.
I consider it for film editing. I could consider it for, I mean, cinematography. It's Fanny Alexander. It's Flashdance. It's War Games.
Yeah. Throw the Hunger in there for cinematography then.
Flashdance.
And War Games being in here, like I like War Games a
Eagle.
lot, but I don't really think of it as like a cinematography type
Uh,
movie.
A visual achievement.
Yeah,
That's an interesting nom. Yeah, I throw the Hunger in here.
The Hunger is stunningly beautiful.
I like the
it really is.
I like the costume designs.
Yeah.
I would consider it there. You know, I consider the art direction. I would consider below the line for sure.
Yeah,
You know what? I would even consider like sound because the sound. In the
Yes.
movie
Oh, we didn't really talk about that too, but the
Yeah,
sound design.
the
sound is
sound is
awesome.
really
Incredible.
great in this movie. Like I mean, you know, just the especially towards the end of the film. I know, and we talked a lot about like the sort of the kind of messy.
Whenever they bust the knives out,
yeah,
sound there is awesome.
yeah. Or you mean like the little dagger,
The
that
little
they-
amulet
yeah,
thing.
Yeah.
But then also too, just like the way the kind of ending of the film is, I think it's very visceral. The beginning of the film is very visceral. The ending of the film is very visceral in terms of sound and aesthetic. I would totally consider it for sound.
Yeah. I mean, seriously, the first 5 minutes of this movie are like the best music video ever made.
Yeah.
I was like, man, this is like an MTV movie at this point. Like, brought to you
very
by-
of its time.
Yeah, it's like any MTV movie at this time was just putting like the hottest people on the planet and just put like the record on in the background, and they're like, yeah, we wanted to make this song. It was really about killing people and immortality, and I ran into Catherine Deneuve at a party once, and she said, I'll do your music video. I loved your last album. And David Bowie, well, he was just hanging around because he's a weirdo. And we got him to get in this music video.
It is weird that Bowie did this.
Anyway, this is
of all
TRL. And,
movies.
have a good night. Yeah, wait, what?
It's just weird that David Bowie did this movie.
It is weird that he did this movie. It feels like, I mean, did you read anything into the production?
No, I mean, everything that the stuff that I saw basically said they wanted David Bowie and David Bowie wanted to do the movie.
I mean, like, it sounded like he'd been looking for a vampire project all along, and it just found him.
Yeah.
So, all right. Well,
Wow.
that's our first episode on the Tony Scott series. We did The
did
Hunger.
it.
We
Tony,
did it,
Tony,
guys. Tony. Josh, can you tell everybody where we can find you and all your work? And also, Josh, if you want to join in with us, we do a recommendation.
Yeah,
The
you got any
listeners out
recs?
there, like if you got a rec that you saw recently that you really got to tell everybody about, go ahead and do so.
Unfrosted.
Mm.
Well, you can find me on Twitter and Letterboxd at JR Parham, and you can also find my work at Next Best Picture and AwardsWatch. And I actually did think about something to recommend, but I haven't seen it recently, but it kind of fits in a little bit thematically with this movie. So if you'll permit me to mention that movie.
Absolutely.
Hold on, let us confer real quick.
Mm.
I'll allow it.
All right.
Jay, wait a minute. Okay, yeah.
I'm gonna supersede Ryan on this one. I'm gonna allow it.
Go ahead, Josh.
I thank the court for their generosity. It's a movie from George Romero, so another horror guy. And this is a movie I actually don't think many people have seen, but it is available on Tubi, and it is called Martin. And it is a vampire movie that he made that is Also, kind of in the similar vein of how The Hunger doesn't feel like a Tony Scott movie, this one doesn't feel like a Romero film because it's very grounded. It really plays more like a character study. And I think it is also just a kind of a masterpiece. I love that movie. And I actually was thinking about it a lot in terms of The Hunger because it does also play very fast and loose with vampire mythology. It doesn't really stick to a lot of those rules that we know, but instead what it does is not really create a like stylistic portrait, but it just really creates more of a character study. And I find it to be a really, really interesting film that people talk about the zombie movies with Romero a lot, but
Mhm.
people don't really mention Martin all that much. And I think people should check it out because it's a really good movie, and I think it actually makes a really good companion piece with this movie, with The Hunger.
Gotta love it. I love a good recommendation that I haven't seen, so I'm gonna add it to the list. That sounds fascinating. And Josh, as always, thank you so much for coming on,
Yes,
buddy.
Josh. Always love having you
We
on.
love having you here.
I appreciate it.
Putting up with our shenanigans. Wouldn't have.
Well, to be fair, I join in on them too. So
You know what I was gonna say. Again, this is why I think it's his favorite show that he gets to come on, because he embraces the shenanigans and.
I
we
know
have a
what show
great
this
time.
is. Yeah.
You know what show this is, and you have a great time
Yeah.
coming on. We're gonna have to get you on again sometime soon.
After the Cormac McCarthy glass coffin, there's just no.
I mean,
Yeah.
I was waiting for somebody to bring it up.
Yeah.
Hadn't been brought up in a while, baby. Jay, you do understand that he is still
That was
passed away.
That was a funny thing that happened.
Jay, can you tell everybody where you can find you and all your work and your recommendation for the week, my friend?
Yeah, Letterboxd, J Ledbetter, Twitter at Mr. J Ledbetter. Any writing I do, find it over at AwardsWatch. And my movie recommendation, watched this one for the first time on the plane back from Italy, humble brag. I watched Blade for the first time.
Jeez, that
And
went
let
loud in my
me tell
ear.
you, Blade rules.
Wait, the
all right.
first Blade?
The first Blade. I
Yeah.
like Blade 1 more than Blade 2. I
Interesting.
watched both of them on the plane.
I'm a Blade 2 guy.
I think Blade 1 has a purity that I really appreciate. Also, Blade 2 really crumbles in on itself with all the narrative convolution of the second half, I think. But
I think
Blade
I
1 is
disagree.
just-
But okay.
yeah, I'll allow it, but I won't agree with it.
Okay.
Wesley Snipes has a real kind of balletic nature to his action performances that I think really works well when you start choreographing stuff in movies. And that movie is just so 1990, when did that come out? 98. It is
Mhm.
just the most 1998 movie that has ever existed. It's actually remarkable to me that that came out before The Matrix.
Yeah.
But it just really captures that era. A lot of the special effects don't really hold up, but I find that kind of endearing in a certain way. And then it just rules. It's such a fun time. It's horny. It's nerdy. It's so nerdy. It is so into lore. And it's just a hell of a good time. So go watch Blade.
Christopherson too.
Christopherson, who they just totally shoehorn into the second one.
Yeah.
They're like, whoops. Didn't realize we'd really be making a second one. Chris,
Christian.
we're gonna put you in carbonite.
Yeah,
Bring you
exactly.
back.
Well, if you think that's bad, you wait till. Have you seen Blade Trinity yet?
I have not seen the third one yet.
Don't do it. You're
I'm
just
gonna
gonna
do
ruin.
it. I'm gonna do it.
Such a bad movie. Oh my god.
Jessica Biel's in that one, right?
Yeah, and Reynolds. Ryan
That's
Reynolds.
the dynamic duo right there.
There you go. That's the cinematic equivalent of no.
Yeah, well, the important thing though is that everybody had a great time making it, though.
Yeah, Wesley Snipes is like famously cool guy to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah, the check cleared on that one, as they always do with Wesley. Do you like the Blade movies, Josh? Do you like those?
You know what? I have to be honest. I've never seen the Blade films.
You never seen the Blade films? Okay.
I've seen like bits and pieces of the first one, and I think I remember like a making of documentary with some of the visual effects and creature design of the second, but I've never watched them all the way through.
So much fun.
I'll tell you who's awesome in the first one. Donald Logue. He's so good.
Interesting. I think I love the first Blade. I think Blade 2 is actually one of Del Toro's best films.
I think the
I
first
love the
half
lore
of
of it.
Blade 2 is awesome.
I
And
think
then
no,
the
I think
second half to me just doesn't really work.
I think the whole thing is great. Like I just love that his like certain like Del Toro his comic book movies are so, I love them. I think that he's such an unabashed fan of those.
Oh, he's a nerd for sure.
Yeah, he's a big old nerd, and he just loves lore. And yeah, I get Jay. Like, if you don't like the lore of what he's giving, and sort of like it becomes like, I felt like honestly, Blade 2 is the great audition for if you liked the like family stuff going on with the bad guys in the second Hellboy movie. This is where that kind of was built from. And it's a continuation, and yeah, it's a little nastier, obviously, and stuff. And I don't know, I just kind of like that just like that weird lore that he is able to provide there. And then Blade Trinity is an abomination of a movie. I mean, it's just like it is one of the worst action sequels of the 21st century. It destroys every good ounce of those first two movies, and you're like, oh, okay, this franchise now sucks, and it killed it. And now they've been like trying to make, like, I will tell you this about Marvel making a Blade movie. I am so excited, one, because I love Mahershala Ali, and two, I love Blade as a character. But that movie has gone through so much hell to be made right now. It almost feels like they are going to make something as bad as Blade Trinity, and I do not want it to be made. And also, Blade movies have to be rated R. They have to have that blood.
Well, didn't they say it was going to be rated R?
We got Wolverine and Deadpool coming up. They're going to do some R-rated stuff.
Yeah, but I don't think, as you can attest to this, Jay, I do not think they will go to the places that original Blade movie will go, which is.
Which is
yeah, it's like a really, like, honestly,
it
like
is
the
nasty little piece of work,
the way I can say this about the first Blade
Blood
movie,
Rave.
Yeah, I mean, it has like the
rocks.
When I think of like the best way to describe it for you, Josh, it's like a mixture of The Matrix and Candyman, almost, like in the way that movie reminds me a lot of to describe to people. So I love it. Blade on a plane, gotta love it. You can find me on Letterboxd, Instagram, and Twitter at Ryan McQuade 77. You can find all my work at AwardsWatch.com. If you like shows, we have the main show that's on Mondays on this feed, because you're hearing this on Thursdays. 5-star reviews on Spotify and iTunes would be great. If you go over to the website, you can sign up for the newsletter. Eric puts that together. That's the best place to get our news, reviews, interviews, podcasts, all in one place, sent to you twice a week. And movie recommendation for me, I watched a movie that I hadn't seen for probably about 15 years this week, and I still think it's brilliant, and it's from a filmmaker that only has 2 movies. So if we ever did that filmography, it's 2 weeks and that's it. I watched Tom Ford's A Single Man this week. I hadn't seen it in such a long time, and I think that movie is still a masterpiece. And I think it's beautiful. I always believe that that's the movie that Colin Firth won his Oscar for, not the other one. And I just think
what if a king had to make a speech, though?
Then you make a movie.
He is good in the King's Speech, though.
I agree.
In a good movie.
He's good. He's not.
King's Speech is good.
There's like 3 other people I give the Oscar to that year. I
mean, the same, but I think that's a very strong best.
I mean, but I maybe I would switch the years and I'd give Bridges for the True Grit performance.
What if a king gave a speech?
But I think that it's incredibly that movie is one of the most beautiful movies of the last 2 decades, and it's so sexy. Like, it just the way in which that movie lingers on characters throughout. It's definitely made by Tom Ford, and it's impeccably stylized, and it has, I think, real emotional weight to it, rather than his second film, which I'm not a big fan of, Nocturnal Animals, which is I remember seeing that, and I just was kind of meh. I was kind of left a little bit, very underwhelmed by that movie, actually. And
it's a weird movie.
It's a very weird movie to follow up A Single Man, but
I like it.
I want him to make but I want him to make another movie. Like, I think he has got an interesting. I mean, obviously, He's got a very interesting eye behind the camera, but I think he's got a lot of great stuff to tell. And
He's also got more money than God. So
I know.
He doesn't have to.
Well, no, I mean, like, if he has more money than God, then he doesn't have to worry about his businesses and he can just make movies, which I think is cool. He's a lot like Spike Jonze. It's like, just make a movie, because when you make them, they're very interesting pieces that I'd like to talk about or watch.
Spike Jonze is the one for me. Like, what are we doing, man?
What are we doing? Stop being in Babylon and go make a damn movie, please. But even though he's really
him
good,
and Bennett Miller, those are the two.
Babylon
that
too?
I'm
Bennett
like,
Miller's another one where it's just where are you at?
Coming up on 10 years since the last Bennett Miller movie, and I'm heartbroken.
Yeah, but I feel like if
what did Bennett Miller do? Does he make a bunch of commercials or something?
I feel like that's the case.
Or does he? I don't know.
Consultant or something?
How do these guys make money?
Know.
Well, like, I know that, like, for Todd,
Bennett Miller doesn't have more money than
Todd
God.
Field went into like consulting. And
I think I remember hearing like Catherine Bigelow. Didn't she have like a real estate business or something like that?
But she's making she's making a new movie. Right?
I think Bennett Miller might do commercials.
I think so. I know Spike Jonze does commercials and Beastie Boy documentaries and stuff with Jackass, and like, the guy's busy. He's just not making a movie.
He's just not making a movie. Yeah.
His movie, yeah.
I'm sure Bennett Miller is doing something. It's just not a movie at this point. And more than likely what it is that he has an idea for a movie, but nobody wants to give him money to make it.
Yeah, I mean, like, isn't that the truth? But also then, like, scale it back a little bit. But no, A Single Man, a fantastic film. And
good movie.
A movie, though, I will say, while I do love it, Julianne Moore has a choice with that accent throughout, and it comes and goes. I'll just put it at that. But she's still very good in the film. But if she just wasn't an English actress, or like being English as an actress in that movie, I would probably love that performance a little bit more. But I don't hate it. Josh, you've obviously seen it and like it, right? Yeah. It's a really good movie.
Yeah, I have not watched it in a very, very long time, but I remember being a really big fan of it when I did first see it.
It's only like 97 minutes. It's like perfect. It's like perfect runtime. It doesn't overstay its welcome. Really beautiful film.
I thought that movie definitely deserved a lot more nominations than it got.
Yeah, that would. I mean, screenplay, director, picture, costumes, production design.
Yeah.
Cinematography, score. I mean, like, that's a movie. It only got Firth and
no, it was just Firth.
It was just Firth. That was it. It was one of those where just like, wow, like, really? That's it? That's all we're gonna go for here?
I mean, it was a late breaker. It came out at the very end of the year. Its subject matter.
Well, no, it played the festivals. It played Venice. It played.
Well, yeah, but
Toronto.
I also just feel like the subject matter of that movie feels very small. And
I felt like if that movie comes out now, maybe it has a better chance, just because the branches of the Academy have changed. But yeah, it's a great movie. Next week we will be back. We will be continuing our Tony Scott movie series. Jay, Top
Gun.
Top Gun. I was gonna say, do you have the need? The Need for Speed. We're gonna be back next week to talk about Top Gun. Pretty big movie. To follow up from The Hunger to that.
As you do.
As you do. And yeah, we go from The Hunger, which was a cult classic, to one of the biggest movies of the 80s.
But honestly, isn't that how it works now? You make Safety Not Guaranteed, and then you're making Jurassic
World. Yeah, and then you make The Book of Henry. Days of Thunder.
I mean, you know what? Going from The Hunger to Top Gun actually makes sense because they both star vampires.
Ayo.
There you go.
Look at that.
Val Kilmer. Oh, wait, that was a Tom Cruise. Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Anyway, thank you all so much for listening. We'll be back next week for Top Gun. Until then, we'll see you all next time.